December the 17th, 2025. Welcome back to the Two Witnesses Live. I'm your host, Watchful, and we're going to do something a little bit different today. Rather than starting off with the daily Torment report, we're actually going to go through and do some timeline work because we should have a special guest in the audience today. I've invited BP Earthwatch to today's show to watch a presentation that I wanted to give him in regards to the timeline. Reason being is a lot of our work is actually coinciding with and supporting what it is that we're seeing. The timeline work that we've been working on in this channel, the data we've been gathering, seems to be pointing at the same thing that he's recognizing in regards to Three Eye Atlas. Last night we had covered his show where he was implying that he thinks that Three Eye Atlas is possibly a fleet of ships of some kind, and I have no reason to disagree with that. In fact, it actually lines up with a lot of scripture, and in fact, it even lines up with the timeline and the events of the events and the conditions that we're seeing on Earth right now. So I wanted to jump into this with you guys, and we're going to start off by looking at some scriptures because I want to show you the scriptural basis for this before we get into the actual timeline. Where do I need to go? Here, we'll get rid of my face. So this is just a query from Grok so that I could get all the verses in one place really easy. So basically I just said, where does the Bible say Jesus returns in the clouds? So the Bible describes Jesus's return associated with clouds in several passages, primarily referring to his visible glorious second coming, drawing from Old Testament imagery like Daniel 7:13, where one like a son of man comes with the clouds of heaven. This is what's important because if indeed the Three Eye Atlas is a fleet of ships, it stands to reason that it could involve the return of the Messiah that we're waiting for, or the return of Jesus, to be more specific, Yeshua. And I wanted to read through some of these things. So here's some key verses. So in Revelation 1:7, it says, "Look, he is coming with the clouds, and every eye will see him, even those who pierced him, and all peoples of earth will mourn because of him. So shall it be. Amen." So can you imagine? So we've talked about this on the show. Like, what are the logistics of coming with the clouds? And really, there's only a couple of scenarios that I can think of. One of which is Monty Python, right? You get the cloud in heaven where he's talking to the king. I've got a mission for you. I mean, that's kind of silly. I mean, like, I think maybe that's what people are imagining. Like, maybe he shows up literally in the clouds, and we're caught up together. Another more realistic scenario is, we have technology that we know can fly, right? Planes. It could very, very likely be that some kind of craft could come and hover in the clouds, could come, or maybe even orbit the Earth in such a way that we could see it, whether with our telescopes and technology, or whether it actually comes down into the atmosphere so that we could literally see something in the clouds and associate it with the return of Yeshua. See, this is where what our belief and the things that we've been taught, the stories that we've been telling each other in church, and reality coincide. A lot of people don't think about their church experience actually coming to fruition and becoming a real thing, when in fact that's what's happening. And one of the things that we do on this channel is we correlate that data. We take the facts of the things that we can observe, and we see where the Bible told us about these things. It's a beautiful thing. We're going to get into that tonight. We're going to go through the timeline. But one of the possibilities is quite literally a craft arriving in the clouds, and then suddenly the whole world is going to know that Yeshua is real and that he is returning for his bride. So let's continue to read some more of these things here. So Matthew 24:30, "Then will appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven." I've always assumed that was going to be an alignment in the stars, but it could also be him literally showing up in It could be Three-Eye Atlas for all intents and purposes. And then all the people, see, the all the people here makes me think that it's got to be a lot closer or more obvious. Then all the peoples of the earth will mourn when they see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. Well, an armada of ships would definitely imply power and great glory. How else do you imply power? If you have the man Christ Jesus coming back for his bride, the earth is pretty powerful. We have nuclear weapons. There are nations with technology that we probably aren't even privy to. I mean, just look at the Iron Dome and the Iron Laser that Israel has been developing. Imagine what Christ is going to come to show his power and great glory. Could very well be an armada of ships that employ some kind of technology that we're not even aware of. Jesus is 2,000 years old at this point. He was born 2,030 years ago, 2,000 years ago. It stands to reason that they've probably advanced in technology if he's coming back, with any kind of technology. Now, granted, I think most of us think when we're thinking about Christ returning that there's no technology involved, that it's all spiritual or special superhuman capabilities or supernatural capabilities. Maybe we think about him like Superman. Maybe he can just naturally fly and teleport. All of these things we've seen on TV with the X-Men and the Avengers and stuff like that. Maybe that's what you've imagined in your mind, but it could also just be that he has great power and technology. Yes, he has overcome death. That is a possibility. That is a thing. We've talked about that on the channel before with how the whole world, all of our reality could be governed by quantum mechanics, which perfectly explains why prayer is so important and why believing is so important, because in quantum mechanics, things don't take shape until they're observed or measured. Well, if we're in a quantum environment, then that can explain how one can be raised from the dead. Anyway, I want to continue down this because I want to get to the timeline data so that I'm not wasting anybody's time. Let's continue to read these. So Mark 13:26. At that time, people will see the Son of Man coming in clouds with great power and glory. Again, another parallel passage, Luke 21:27. At that time, they will see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory. Where this is showing up. So this is, if you're familiar with the end time scriptures, it's Matthew 24, Mark 13, Luke 21. When you're reading through those, they're basically describing the things that we've gone through for the last 7 years. And by the time it gets to him returning with great power and great glory, I put forth that it's describing where we are in the timeline right now. And I intend to prove that when going through the data that we're going to go through here shortly. So here's some more related scriptures. Acts 1, 9 through 11 describes Jesus' ascension into a cloud when angels saying he will return in the same way, implying a visible descent with clouds. So maybe they beamed him up. We've seen from Julia McCoy's channel that teleportation is very possible. They've just discovered one mechanism that could enable teleportation. Well, you imagine with beings that have been around for several centuries, it's entirely possible that they've mastered that technology, and going up into the clouds could be as simple as teleportation, like Star Trek. Beam me up, Scotty. And then 1 Thessalonians 4:17, believers will be caught up together in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air, often linked to the rapture when Jesus meets believers in the clouds, distinct but sometimes connected to the full second coming. So, we could be literally looking at a kind of an escaping the events that are coming on the earth, like an ark. That could be the rapture that everyone has been looking for, that those who are, spiritually aware that we're in the end times, that could be the rapture. There could be technology involved, or it could be supernatural. It could be either. All right. So then the next thing here that I asked Grok What about where Jesus waits for the Father to tell him to go get his bride? Now, the reason I wanted to show some scripture in regards to this is because it shows what might be happening with Three Eye Atlas. Because right now, Three Eye Atlas, it's getting close to its closest position to Earth, which is going to be on 2 more days. December 19th is going to be its closest it's going to be to the Earth, and then it's going to loop back around to go to Jupiter. Jupiter is known as the king planet, or the planet of royalty. It's very likely one of the planets that was involved with the Star of Bethlehem in conjunction with Regulus, I believe, and Leo, that was used by the Magi in order to know not only when Jesus was born, but also where to find him on the earth. So it's pretty common knowledge that Jupiter is associated with kings. So it's I think that's indicative of the fact that Three Eye Atlas could be looping back around to go basically hover around Jupiter. And biblically, what we could see is that could be him waiting for his father to tell him when it's time to go get his bride. So I wanted to read this. So the idea I'm referring to here is Jesus is currently waiting for the Father's right hand, at the Father's right hand, for the command or signal to return and get his bride, the church. Often described in bridal imagery in the New Testament, draws from several biblical passages and is common teaching in some Christian traditions, especially those emphasizing the rapture and ancient Jewish wedding customs as a metaphor. So here's the core biblical references. Yeah, let's start with Hebrews. I kind of want to start down here because this is the one people use the most, but we'll start in Hebrews. Hebrews 10:12 through 13. But when the priest, Christ, had offered for all time one sacrifice for sins, he sat down at the right hand of God. And since that time, he waits for his enemies to be made his footstool. So this ChatGPT says this describes Jesus seated at the Father's right hand, actively waiting until the appointed time, which this is what we're going to cover today, the appointed time, when his full reign is realized, echoing Psalm 110. That's where David, David, where David says, you know what I mean. It's echoing Psalm 110:1, talking about Jesus seated at the right hand until his enemies are made his footstool or something like that. So Matthew 24. So this is the thing. Anytime you ever talk about end time events, this is like the most common response you get from people who really don't care, or they're burned out because they've got excited about this at some point in their life, and it didn't come to pass. So now they're burned out and have decided that no one knows the day or hour. So in Matthew 24, it says, "But about that day or hour, no one knows, not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but only the Father." What if this is implying that even Jesus to this very day may not know when his return is? And that might be why if he's in a fleet, an armada of ships is going to, swing by Earth, kind of let us know he's here, and then go wait at Jupiter until the Father says it's time. Because there are still things that need to happen before he returns, and we're going to look at those today. So Acts 1:7, he said to them, "It is not for you to know the times or dates the Father has set by his own authority." And then in 1 Thessalonians 4:16 and 17, "For the Lord himself will come down from heaven with a loud command, with the voice of the archangel, and with the trumpet call of God. And the dead in Christ will rise first. After that, we who are alive and are left will be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air." And then I just want to read this real quick, and then we'll start getting into the timeline. So the church is called Christ's bride in passages like Ephesians 5:25 through 32, Revelation 19:7 through 9. Excuse me. The marriage supper of the Lamb in Revelation 21:2 and 9. Many teachers connect this to ancient Jewish wedding traditions. So the groom would be Jesus in this case, pays the bride price, which is his blood, prepares a place. John 14:2 and 3, he said, I go to prepare a place for you. I will come back and take you to be with me, and returns at a time set by his Father. Again, emphasizing why Three Eye Atlas might be waiting at Jupiter. The groom doesn't decide the exact moment. The Father inspects the preparation and says when it's ready. All right, so we're done with that. Now let's get into the timeline. So this is the illustration that we've been developing for since 2019. Now, I've been studying eschatology most of my life. I got serious about it in 2001 when I left the church that I was raised with. So I've followed Yeshua my entire life. And like many of you, it's been a journey. And I believe that God has raised me and others up for this day that we're living through right now. We each have a role to play. I don't make any special claims about who I am or why I have this information. Most of you know this. I don't hear a voice. I don't talk to angels. I don't have dreams that give me this information. This is the product of hard work. As an engineer, I think engineers tend to gravitate towards solving the end time events because it's what we do. We solve problems. I'm an engineer. I solve problems. This is what I do during the day. And what makes us especially good at solving problems is we get very comfortable with failure because that's just part of the iteration cycle, the feedback loop, if you will, to where we try an idea, measure it, or try an idea. When it fails, we measure why did it fail, and we try it again until we start getting valuable data and information. That's how this information came to be. This is based on factual information that lines up with the scriptures, and it is freely available for you guys to criticize and provide evidence contrary to what's stated here. But what you're looking at here is there's actually two timelines that are listed. You've got, and I'm sorry you can't see my mouse here. Maybe let me see if I can move this over to the other screen. See how that looks. Let's see. There you go. That works. Now you can see my mouse. So you've got two timelines. So you've got this top timeline up here, and then this is another timeline. I'll explain why this one is here. But let's start with this one. So what you're looking at is this shows a 14-year period of time. And it starts in 2017, 2 days before what I believe is the genuine Revelation 12:1 and 2 sign, which happened on September 23rd, 2017. And the reason why this calendar starts 2 days before that is because this is Tishri 1. This is the beginning of the the Jewish New Year, which is important when setting the Festival of Trumpets. So what I want to illustrate is this sign happened on the Festival of Trumpets. So let's go look at that sign if you haven't seen this yet. So this is the sign that happens, and there are those who argue that this isn't special, which we've covered this on the show before, that this is indeed special and unique. So what's important about this is, let's go look at well, I'll just quote it for you. Revelation 12:1 and 2 says, then a wonder appeared in heaven. A woman, shoot, you know what? Pressure. I can't quote. Let's go over here. We'll look at Revelation 12 just to get it exactly correct. Now a great sign appeared in heaven. A woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and on her head a garland of 12 stars. Then being with child, she cried out in labor and in pain to give birth. So this is describing, so what's important to note here is it's describing a great sign in heaven. Immediately that tells us to look up. A woman clothed with the sun, which this is a common phrase when you're studying astronomy and astrology, I believe also. This is a fairly it's common enough that it's not that hard to validate what I'm saying about this. When a constellation is clothed with the sun, it just means the sun is in that constellation. So what we're talking about here is the constellations that are up in heaven. And for those of you who may be new to, astronomy or astrology, just anything to do with the stars, is there are 12. The sun actually travels a particular path called the ecliptic from our perspective. It travels a path called the ecliptic, and it moves through 12 sections of the sky, which have been marked out for millennia and centuries and forever. It's for a very long time. This has been a common point of reference, and we use this for keeping time. In Genesis 1:14, God said that he set the sun, moon, and stars for signs, seasons, days, and years. And it's literally the mechanism that we use to know what hour it is, what month it is, what year it is, when certain events occur. So it's based on the constellations. I'm not going to go too deep into that, but basically, when the sun is in a constellation, it's referred to as being clothed in the sun. So this already tells us to look for a constellation, to look for a sign where the sun is in a particular constellation. With the moon under her feet, that's pretty obvious, and on her head a garland of 12 stars, pretty obvious. Then, being with child, she cried out in labor and in pain to give birth. Less obvious, but vital to the sign. Okay, now let's come back over here. So, what you have here is this sign in heaven. So, you got Virgo, which is Virgo and Leo, which are two constellations in the ecliptic where the sun travels through. You have the sun in Virgo, which is right here. So she is clothed with the sun. You have the moon under her feet. And what really makes this unique to this particular day is you have Jupiter in retrograde, which means it kind of just does this circle. And it did this circle for 42 weeks, 9 months in Virgo. So when it says that she's in pain to be delivered, we have an indication here in the sign that she's pregnant because you have Virgo, or you have Jupiter, which is also known as the king planet. Remember, I mentioned Jupiter is it's important that 3i Atlas is going to wait at Jupiter. You have it in retrograde here, and I'll show you when it started and when it left when we go back to the list of dates. But suffice it to say that she's pregnant here. And then you have Leo, which is a constellation made up of 9 stars. And there just happened to be 3 planets that were in that constellation for a total of 12. Now, this sign never, ever, 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 ever happens exactly like this, except on this one day. And we've looked at all of the occurrences on this channel, at least going backwards. We have yet to actually do the ones going forward. I've done it personally, just haven't done it on the show. But we've looked at every instance of this going back. I think it was 6,000 or 7,000 years. And there, anytime somebody points out and says, "Oh, this sign happens all the time," what they're referring to is similar signs, but they're always missing one element, like Jupiter's not in retrograde, or there's not 12 stars at her head, or the moon is so far below her feet that it's not really at her feet; it's in another constellation. So there is one alignment that we found that's close to this alignment. And for this to happen, you have to understand that for all the elements to come together at the same time, it'll only ever happen because of the orbits and the cycles. Like Jupiter, for instance, it has like a 12-year orbit, and it's in retrograde in a different constellation like every 12 years. So it's pretty. Don't quote me on exactly that, but it's something like that. We did find one that's very similar, but the crown of 12 stars is not a perfect crown of 12 stars. They're just a little bit too far outside of Leo. So suffice it to say that this is rare enough and unique enough to fit the description of a wonder in heaven, a sign in heaven. And what it does is it acts as an anchor point to the scripture, because we have something that was written about 2,000 years ago that described this particular sign. And then it goes on to describe events around this when this happens in heaven. So it's entirely possible that these things happened in 432 AD when, the sign that's similar to this happens. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. But for our day and age, with everything that's been going on, this seems to act as an anchor point, and you'll be more convinced of this by the time we get through the timeline. With everything else, this is just the tip of the iceberg. But what this sign, a lot of us thought this was going to be the rapture, me included. When we watched this sign happen in the heavens, we watched the eclipse happen that happened the month before. I think it was month before or month after. Everybody thought that this was going to be when the rapture happened. Well, it turns out that indeed it did happen. No rapture happened. At least not that anybody is aware of. Maybe people did leave, but they didn't send back word that they were taken. So, for all intents and purposes, there were a lot of people who were disappointed when nothing really happened. And now we know that the reason nothing happened is because this is the anchor point. This is what gets our attention. Hey, the book of Revelation is written to your administration. Pay attention to the events and what's written in the book of in Revelation, because it applies directly to you and your generation. That's what this tells us. Now, from that point, the next thing that is important is the seals. So in order to identify the seals open, so now that we know the events written in the book of Revelation apply to us in this day and time, this is our starting point. This is where we start to look for things. Excuse me. And as it happens, in Revelation 4, it describes this picture, which is most often interpreted as what the throne room of God looks like. What we have learned since then is that it's not, maybe it is, maybe it's not, but what it describes can be matched to a particular perspective looking at the Earth. So if you were to fly up to maybe Polaris, which is the North Star, and you were to look down at the Earth, and we're able to replicate this in computer programs like Stellarium. That's how I got this image. If you were to go up and look down at the North Pole, the elements that are described in Revelation chapter 4 describe that perspective. Now it says that John saw a window open in heaven, he was taken up, and then he saw, the throne room with the green rainbow and the 24 elders and the 4 living creatures. So I'm not going to read it just in order to save time, because I just want to get through this data so you can see what I'm saying. But what it describes is a throne in heaven surrounded by a green rainbow with 4 living creatures, a lion, a calf, the face of a man, and a flying eagle. And it's surrounded by a green rainbow, which is very likely the Aurora Borealis. It's the only green rainbow I know about on the Earth. There's one at the North Pole and there's one at the South Pole. So you got 2 options. But when you're looking at the North Pole, these 4 living creatures just happen to be in the corners of the Earth, if a circle has corners. But you can see what I mean here, 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 and here. And then the 24 elders, this is one that I've been unsure of for a while, but I'm pretty confident that we have this right. 24 elders is very likely referring to the time zones on the Earth or the hours in a day. Either one of them could fit the description. And the reason why they're clothed in white with a crown of gold is because it's describing the sun and the moon. And what it says, and maybe we can go there. So if we go in here, I'll show you, this is the really important part of all of this. So basically Revelation 4 is a Rosetta Stone for how to identify the events of when they're happening and what to look for. So where does it say when they cast their crown before the throne? Here you go. Whenever the living creatures give glory and honor and thanks to him who sits on the throne, who lives forever, the 24 elders fall down before him who sits on the throne and worships him, who lives forever and ever, and casts their crowns before the throne, saying, "You are worthy, O Lord, to receive glory and honor and power, for you created all things, and by your will they exist and were created." This is the important part right here. Cast their crowns. And one of the reasons why I think it's the sun and the moon, because when the sun and the moon come together and there's what's called an annular solar eclipse, it has a crown. It's a gold ring. And in old cultures, people don't realize that cultures before our modern day invested a lot of time and money into understanding the stars, and for good reason, because God set them for signs, seasons, days, and years. In the same way that the Magi were able to know when the king was born, there's information to be gathered from paying attention, even if it's just to know what month you're in or when to plant your crops. So that's why you see a lot of cultures that have a lot of stuff associated with the stars, like the Sphinx. The Sphinx tells you how to read the message that's being told up in the heavens, where you've got the head of a woman and the body of a lion. So, you start with the woman, you go all the way around, and you end with a lion. So when it says they cast their crowns before the throne, there's I think it's in the Kabbalah. I can't remember where I learned this from. I learned it in 2019. And it was just some random YouTube video where I was listening to somebody talk about, I think it was astrology and the Kabbalah. Don't quote me on this. I could be wrong. If you know where I learned this from, please let me know, because I've been looking for it again. But there was a teaching, and I think it's in the Kabbalah, that when an eclipse occurs, it's meant to get your attention. It's like they called it God's exclamation mark. And the entire sky is meant to be read like a book, meaning the positions of all the planets, the sun and the moon, are all relative and are conveying information. Now, we've lost a lot of this information through time. Because a lot of people look at the stars and think of astrology, and they think of witchcraft and magic, and then they're afraid of it. They don't realize that it was given to us by God to know when things are going to happen, because this is one of his ways that he tells us and to prepare us for things, even if it's just when to plant your food. But also important things like festivals and events, and even the return of his son. So this is the key thing to know here: when they cast their crowns before the throne. And let's go back over here to the timeline. So what we can learn from, oh, that's right, I gotta do it over here. So imagine I'm telling you the truth and that all of this is right. So that Revelation 4 is a Rosetta Stone for how to identify the events. What can we learn from this? How do we know when something is happening? Well, that key about casting the crowns before the throne, it just so happens that there were eclipses that happened. So if you think of these living creatures as covering 1/4 of the earth, so if the lion covers from like Virgo over here to Gemini, Taurus covers from Gemini over here to Pegasus. Aquila covers from Pegasus to Ophiuchus, and then Ophiuchus covers from here to here. So basically, if they're responsible for their section of the sky, then you could look for an eclipse that would happen in their section of the sky, so that in Revelation 6, where it says the living creature says, "Come and see." Let's go look at that real quick. So if we come over here and we look at Revelation 6. So the very first one: "Now I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals, and I heard one of the 4 living creatures say with a voice like thunder, 'Come and see.' And I looked, and behold, a white horse. He who sat on it had a bow, and a crown was given to him, and he went out, conquering and to conquer. So we have a creature, one of the living creatures. Notice it doesn't say which one. It doesn't say when I heard the lion or when I heard the face of a man. I think that's intentional, and I'll show you why as we get through the timeline. But if you come back over here, so the first one we're going to look at actually happened here in Aquila, which it's interesting. Happened here in Aquila, which it's interesting because the list of the living creatures was given in this order: lion, calf, face of a man, flying eagle. And the seals actually opened in reverse order. So the first seal happened in Aquila, then the face of a man, then the calf, Taurus, and then the Leo, the lion, which I believe is just further corroborating evidence that we got the seals right. So now let's look at what the first one that happened. So this happened on December 26, 2019. There was an annular solar eclipse above Sagittarius. So it was a crown, and it was above a man on a horse who was given who has a bow. Now they don't all perfectly match like this, but I think this is kind of like, as far as anchor points go for the seal, this is giving us an anchor point for this is where you start. The first living creature, Aquila, is right here. Aquila is right above Sagittarius. Remember how I said the living creatures kind of seem like they're part of, they have a section of sky that they oversee for intents and purposes of understanding these events. So Aquila is right up here. So you could say that Aquila said, "Come and see." A rider on a white horse who's given a crown and a bow and goes forth conquering and to conquer. Well, what's interesting about this day, and I don't have, I probably should have brought up a different slideshow. I do a more exhaustive, I have a more exhaustive presentation where I actually go through and show the YouTube videos and, all the things that are happening on these particular days. You just have to believe me. If you want the evidence, I'll send you a link to the slideshow. But this was the start of the COVID pandemic publicly. This was the first public notice of the COVID pandemic. Now, if you want to know what the horses mean, it's my opinion based on the angel's description in Daniel. Zechariah. Is it Daniel or Zechariah? Could be one of those two sections. But it talks about 4 horses that are the spirits that go to and fro on the earth. I believe the horses are indicative of global events. So that's another key to understanding when these things happen is we're looking for things that have a global impact. And what I'm going to show you, each one of these events had a global impact, obviously. The COVID pandemic obviously went forth conquering and to conquer. It affected the entire planets. And it just so happened that December 26, 2019, the day of this eclipse, which is in a constellation matching the description of the first seal being opened, that also happens to be in the section of the sky overseen by one of the constellations that fits the description of the 4 living creatures. This was when you might remember this. This is when in China they were, I can't remember if it was this day. I have it on the other slide, if they were locking people in their homes in China. But there were reports of, a cold that had started to spread. And then, if you Google this, they'll Google when did COVID start, they'll say in December. They're starting to say now a little bit earlier than this, but because of the way things happened, I believe that this is the start of the COVID pandemic. It's so close that it's within like a month. You know what I mean? So one thing like this could be a coincidence, but wait, there's more. Let's go to the next one, and let's move me over on this side. So what you have here is you had another annular solar eclipse right here. One of these is a total solar eclipse, but when I actually watched each one of these eclipses, and each one was a crown. But if you go and you look up the eclipses on the date and time website where that lists the eclipses, one of them, I can't remember which one it is listed as a total solar eclipse, and the other ones are annular solar eclipses. But for all intents and purposes, I believe that this is the living creatures casting, or not the living creatures, the 24 elders casting their crowns before the throne. So basically, this is God's exclamation mark, and you've got, the elders that are responsible for our hours and time zones coming together, casting their crown before the throne, and then you have the living creature, which in this case is the face of a man, Ophiuchus, which it just blows my mind how this stuff fits the description. It's literally, like, when you're looking at this, it's literally the face of a man. It's Ophiuchus. It's just his face when you're looking down at the North Pole. That always just boggles my mind. And to me, it reinforces that we're at least on the right path for understanding these things. So you had an annular, I have it listed here, annular solar eclipse right here. This one is in the knee of Ophiuchus, and it, depending on the pictograph, it also could be his foot. There's some more ancient images that are used here where this is actually his foot. I don't know if that's relevant, but the fact is it's in the constellation that is known as Face of a Man, and he's holding this snake, which is called Asclepios, or serpens. But in Greek mythology, this is the Greek god of medicine. And that's going to be important here when I tell you what happened on this day. Now, the rider, seal number 2, is the rider on the red horse who's given power to take peace, and he is given a great sword. And this was the day, December 14th, 2020, that the Electoral College declared Joe Biden to be the winner of the presidential election. This was also the same day that the Trump administration turned over control of Operation Warp Speed to the Biden administration. And there's more. This was the first day that the first vaccine was given under Operation Warp Speed. So seal number 2 is the rider on the red horse who's given power to take peace. I believe that the power to take peace was the office of the presidency. And as it turns out, Joe Biden did take peace from the earth. The Trump administration worked to bring conflicts to an end. It was a peaceful administration. And when it transitioned to the Biden administration, he did the opposite. He caused conflict. He took that peace away and took peace from the entire earth. We're still dealing with the consequences of that today. Now, the sword that he was given is very likely the vaccine. It was a weapon. It was used on the entire earth as a weapon. Remember, people were recommended to get the vaccine, get boosters, get 8, 9, 10 boosters. There was no end to the amount of boosters that they recommended you get. And people were literally dying on stage within hours of getting the vaccine. And even to this day, RFK, as I understand it, has finally started taking action to remove it from the market. If you go look on Rumble or YouTube, there's many videos that will show a phenomenon that started after December 14th, 2020, in that people who received the vaccine had these like white clots, this white material that they had never seen before, and the death rate had increased. Now, the administrators of this administration would have you believe that was a result of COVID, but as information comes out now, it's starting to challenge that narrative. Suffice it to say, this was the day the Biden administration started and the vaccines were given, and it could be said that it fits the description of this living creature saying, "Come and see." And I saw a rider on a red horse, given power to take peace, office of the president, and given a mighty sword, the vaccine, that was used as a weapon. All right, moving on, as if that's not enough. Now, seal number 3 is the one that is probably the most controversial because it is assumed that most people believe that seal number 3 is the start of famine. And the reason, here, we should just read this one. This one's easier to see. So seal number 3, when he opened the third seal, I heard the third living creature say, "Come and see." So I looked, and behold, a black horse, and he who sat on it had a pair of scales in his hand. Now that's where the verse ends. The next verse is 6. Something I want you to know here is this pair of scales right here. Where is it? Pair of scales. The Greek word for pair of scales here is the Greek word zugos, and it actually translates to yoke. It does not translate to pair of scales or balances. Now, when translating from one language to another, especially in Greek, many of the words can be translated into different words in the. So let's just speak clearly. When translating from Greek to English, a word like zugos can be translated into different words. It can be translated into yoke, which it is. When Jesus says, "My yoke is easy, my burden is light," it's the same word, zugos. So the one word, it's not a one-to-one translation, is what I'm trying to say. So the translators chose to call this pair of scales, and in some translations they call it balances. It's common to try and determine what they should translate it based on the contexts. And I believe they translated it to balance or scales because of this next verse. Revelation chapter 6, verse 6. And I heard a voice in the midst of the 4 living creatures saying, "A quart of wheat for a denarius, and 3 quarts of barley for a denarius, and do not harm the oil and the wine." So, in the immediate context is referencing to measuring. It's understandable that the translators would say we should translate zugos as balance. Now, why would you do that? Old time balances have a yoke. They have a yoke with a pivot point, and then they have two pans on either side, and then you put items in those pans to weigh them against each other. The thing that does that at the top is called a yoke. But that's not the only thing that a yoke represents. Let me show you what a yoke also is. This is a yoke, right? So you have this piece of wood here that combines the strength of your farm animals so that they can pull metal through the dirt. It helps break up the dirt so that you can prepare the soil to plant seeds for your harvests. So this is also another version of a yoke, and you can understand how, a yoke would also be for a pair of balances. Now, based on what happened on this day, I'm of the opinion that it does not have to do with famine, but what it's actually saying is 2 beasts will be yoked together. And the reason I say that is on June 10th, 2021, this was an annular solar eclipse that happened in the living creature, the calf, the bull, the Taurus. It's called Taurus. It happened between his horns, which I think is indicative and interesting because horns play a role in Revelation. And what happened on this day is you had Joe Biden and Boris Johnson signed the New Atlantic Charter, which combined the strength of the United States and the United Kingdom in 8 different categories. We actually read the New Atlantic Charter in yesterday's episode. And so it's things like security and health and climate change and basically all the things you've seen that have been messing up that happened during the Biden administration that really messed things up and has been causing the chaos in the world. So I don't know what role these 2 countries have in the future, but it's interesting in Daniel, the imagery that's given around around beasts. That's where we learn that beast often means a government of some kind. So the fact that you have the United States here, which is a beast of a type, and the United Kingdom, joining together via the New Atlantic Charter, you could say that they are yoked together. They have signed a contract to combine their strength for a purpose. Now, is that what the rider on the black horse is holding when he's holding a yoke in his hand? I believe so, because when you read chapter 6 or verse 6, it says, "And I heard in the midst of the four living creatures." Midst means middle. So basically, what it seems to be saying is, I heard in this period of time marked out by the four living creatures. So basically, from the start of seal number 1 to the end of seal number 4, there was inflation. I heard a measure of wheat for a denarius, 3 measures of barley for a denarius, and do not harm the oil and the wine. And what happened during the Biden administration? We saw the worst inflation that we've ever seen in 40 years. It went, the official number is 9%. Some would argue it went up as high as 40, 45%. In other words, it went up high. People will often teach that they're expecting, one of the signs of the end times is that it literally costs you a day's wage to eat, because they'll interpret it that way. For all intents and purposes, suffice it to say that inflation was definitely an issue during the 4 seals, so we've covered 3 seals so far. We're going to cover the 4th one next. So what else do we have here? So this is Joe Biden and Boris Johnson doing the elbow bump. I got this here also because G7 is in the background. And I think this could be indicative of who the beast from the sea is. In Revelation 13, it talks about 2 beasts, one from the sea and one from the land. Now, like I said, Daniel interprets what a beast means. It means a government or a kingdom, can also refer to a king. So it's interesting that they're standing in front of the G7 doing the elbow bump. So basically, you've got 2 beasts, 2 kings who just yoked together, standing in front of a sign that implies 7, which the reason it's called the G7 is because the main founding controlling members are 7 nations. I can't remember all of them. It's United States, Canada, United Kingdom, Japan, Germany. I can't remember the other 2. But it's made up of seven nations. So is that the first beast from the sea? We learn from Revelation 17 that the sea is people, nations, and tongues. What we've discussed on this channel is that could be referring to a democratic type of governing body. In other words, the people in power are voted into power because it's made up of the people, nations, and tongues, right? Which implies that the beast from the land is not a democracy. There's been a lot of association with the beast from the land, very likely being Rome, because in Revelation 17 we also learn that the beast sits on 7 islands. There's a lot of details there we're not going to get into for time, because I want to continue getting through the rest of the timeline. But it's very likely that what you're looking at is a governing body, democratically elected, like the G7, 2 of its horns yoked together for some purpose. And it's also interesting that Donald Trump keeps saying that the United States was dead and now it's alive, because that's also matches Revelation 13 that talks about the beast with the head wound that was wounded by the sword. Now, if you remember seal number 2, the rider on the red horse was given a sword, which it seems as though the sword was the vaccine. You could argue that the pandemic and the vaccine almost killed the United States. So wounded unto death is very applicable to what happened in the United States. And if it wasn't for Donald Trump winning in 2024 and signing executive orders for the first 100 days like mad to reverse what Joe Biden had done, that's what brought that miraculous life back to the United States. He keeps saying it. It's really funny. I point it out whenever he says it, that it was dead. United States was dead. And now it's alive. And the whole world wondered. which is very true about what's happening right now. Gives you kind of an idea of where we are in the timeline, and it was written about 2,000 years ago. Well, not 2,000 years ago, about 2,000 years ago, 1,900 years ago. All right, which I always think this is funny too. When they did that COVID elbow bump, they it matches the pictograph for Gemini. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but I think it's hilarious. All right, moving on. So here, I got to move my camera to the other side of the screen here. So October 14th, 2023. Do you know what happened on that day? Most people don't. Most people are familiar with October 7th, 2023. 7 days prior to this eclipse was the Al-Aqsa flood. That was when Hamas invaded Israel, took 200 some odd hostages, and killed 1,200 or more people in a vicious, violent attack. What's interesting about this is it's the last seal with a living creature to open. What happened on this day was Israel, after dealing with the attack, collected themselves, organized Operation Iron Sword, and responded to Hamas and went into Palestine bringing hell. I'm of the opinion that when we should read this just so we can get it right. So seal number 4, when he opened the fourth seal, I heard the voice of the fourth living creature, which this would seem to be Leo, saying, "Come and see." So I looked, and behold, a pale horse, which is green, actually. The word pale is green. Chloros. The same, chloros, if you're familiar with, plant biology or the study of plants, chloros, is it chloroform? Chloroform's the stuff that knocks people out. Chloros is the what makes plants green, I believe. And the name of him who sat on it was Death, and Hades followed with him. So you have two entities mentioned here in seal number 4. Death followed by Hades. And power was given to them over a fourth of the earth to kill with sword, with hunger, with death, and by the beasts of the earth. Now, what's interesting about this, so if we come back over here, is the eclipse was in Virgo. So like I said, the living creatures, when they say come and see, I believe it's referring to, an eclipse happening in proximity to the constellation that's known as the living creature, which Leo here is clothed with the sun because the sun's in Leo. Oh, no, that's not Leo. That's Regulus. The sun's over here. So Virgo is clothed with the sun because obviously you have to be, or you don't get an eclipse. So it could be said, one of the living creatures could be saying, "Come and see," and this is the response of Israel to Gaza. I believe this is the start of seal number 4. And there's been a lot. Israel's been surrounded by enemies. There's been no end of. It's not new that people were launching missiles into Israel, but it sure did escalate. And now the whole world is on edge because of what's happening in Israel, which doesn't make logical sense. There's maybe 15 million Jews on this planet. They're very small in number. Why is the whole world surrounding Israel? Doesn't make logical sense. It's a spiritual thing. So I believe this was the opening of seal number 4. All right. So when you put all of that together, this is what you get. You get Revelation 4 through 6. So if you're looking down at the North Pole, and if you're looking at the living creatures, the lion, the calf, the face of a man, and the flying eagle, this was the order that they opened. So you had the COVID pandemic happened in the flying eagle, underneath of it. You had the face of a man, that was Joe Biden, and the vaccine, that happened here. And then you had this eclipse, which happened here. This was when the United States and the United Kingdom yoked together. And then down here, you had the Al-Aqsa flood, which is very likely the flood that was cast out after the woman that the earth swallowed up. It was. Did you know that the Al-Aqsa flood was meant to completely destroy Israel? It was supposed to be a coordinated effort of multiple countries, and something had happened that Hamas went in pretty much alone. I believe that was the earth swallowing up the flood, so that they did not completely eradicate the 15 million Jews who were left on this planet. And in the midst of all of this, and as a result of these things, the pandemic, the Biden administration, the union between the United States and the United Kingdom, and the conflicts, especially with what's happening with Israel, you had massive inflation. These are all facts. These are all things that actually happened. Interesting, isn't it? So where does that leave us today? So I'm going to end there. I actually have way more. I have probably 3 times the amount of data in regards to this calendar and this timeline of events. But at what point do you have so many factual pieces of information to where you start to say that it's irrefutable? I challenge anyone to find an error that I've made, or refute the links that I've made. I'm open to criticism here. By all means, if you need to email me, it's just the name of the channel at Gmail, twowitnesseslive@gmail. That's how you can get a hold of me if you want to refute anything that I've said. Time is short though, so you better get busy, because I want to show you the reason why I think that BP Earthwatch might be right about 3i Atlas being an armada of ships. So back to this timeline here. So we've got the start here. This was the Revelation 12 sign. And during this first 3.5, so what you notice here is this is a 14-year period of time. So what I've got it broken down into 2 sections of 7 years. 7 is a very important number in Scripture. It's spiritual perfection. Often it's also indicative of the end of rest, because you have 7 days in a week. 6 days you work, and on the 7th day you rest. That's when God rested from what he did. He created the heavens and the earth, and then he rested on the 7th day. It's a pattern that goes throughout all the time. So anyway, you've got 2 periods of time here. So 14 is also interesting. You've got seal number 1 and seal number 2 happening in the first 3.5 years. The interesting thing about 7 is when you divide it by 2, it's 3.5. And 3.5 is a number that's used in at least 4 or 5 places in regards to end time events. Whenever it says 42 months, that's 3.5 years. Time times and a half a time can be translated to 3.5 years. And then 1,260 days also fits within 3.5 years. So it's an important number, the 3.5. That's why I've got these sections marked out here. So in the first 3.5 years, you had seal number 1 and 2 open. The second 3.5 years, you had seals 3 and 4 open. And then seal number 4 lasted a pretty long time. And then this green line is about where we are right now. It's actually, honestly, I should probably move it over a little bit more. I haven't moved it in a while. It's an approximation. But basically, you've got seal number 4, and then we're looking at seal number 5. And then during this time is when the 2 witnesses show up. And that's how we come to the name of this channel, 2 Witnesses Live, is because based on this information, I was anticipating that we should identify who the 2 witnesses are. Now, the 2 witnesses, there's not a lot said about who they are. And there's a handful of assumptions on who they could be based on what's described. So basically, the 2 sections of Scripture that talk about the 2 witnesses are Zechariah 4 and 5, arguably, and Revelation 11. We get most of the information from Revelation 11 because Zechariah 4 just says that these are the 2 anointed ones who stand before the Lord of the whole earth. It gives some visual imagery about olive trees and feeding oil into the menorah, which is a lamp with 7 posts, 7 candlesticks. And Revelation 11, Revelation 2 and 3 actually describes the candlesticks. It describes the menorah, and it actually tells us what it is. Revelation 1, Jesus, or the Son of Man, is surrounded by 7 candlesticks, and then it tells us what the 7 candlesticks are. It's the 7 churches. And then Revelation chapter 2 and 3, it gives descriptions about the 7 churches. And what's interesting is that they're given instructions for things that they should do before Christ returns, before Jesus returns. And out of those 7 churches, 5 of them have things that they really need to fix. Problems. They're problematic. They need to get their act together before Jesus returns. However, there are 2 who stand out as having nothing to repent from. Smyrna, which is the church under crushing pressure, or thlipsis. They're the persecuted church, the church of Smyrna. And then the church of Philadelphia, which is, Philadelphia means brotherly love. And that's the church of brotherly love. Those 2 churches have nothing to repent from. And I've made the claim that I think that that's illustrating to love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. Because those, see, and it's interesting, once you realize that, it kind of elevates you above the doctrinal issues. And I think that's important when identifying the 2 witnesses, is because it's not so much about, whether you're right or wrong in the way you interpret the scripture. It really boils down to, do you love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and do you love your neighbor as yourself? All the details can be worked out when Christ returns. But are those the 2 things that govern your life and your behaviors, which is important when it comes to the seals, or when it comes to being sealed in your forehead and in your right hand? So the thing that controls who you are, that's your forehead. That's your belief center. That's where what you believe controls what you do. And your right hand is what you bless, the actions that you take. So your beliefs and your actions. So it's interesting that the 2 churches, Smyrna and Philadelphia, seem to illustrate loving God and loving your neighbor as yourself. Now, in Revelation 11, and we should just read this because it's pretty small. Revelation 11. Make me a little bit bigger. There you go. All right. We'll just read all of this. Then I was given a reed like a measuring rod, so this is John. Then I was given a reed like a measuring rod, and the angel stood, saying, "Rise and measure the temple of God, the altar, and those who worship there. But leave out the court which is outside the temple, and do not measure it, for it has been given to the Gentiles, and they will tread the holy city underfoot for 42 months." There's that time frame that I had mentioned, 42 months, 3.5 years. "And I will give power to my 2 witnesses, and they will prophesy 1,260 days, clothed in sackcloth." This is one of the few. This information here is really all we have about the 2 witnesses. So we know that they're going to be doing something consistently. They're going to be talking consistently for 3.5 years. And this is when I decided to start the channel, The 2 Witnesses Live, because I thought, hey, I'll cheat. I'll have content for 3.5 years. As soon as if I can find these 2 guys, which I think it's 2 guys, but I also think that it's also the 2 churches. If I can find these 2 guys, I'll have content nonstop for 3.5 years. What a great basis for a channel, right? That's lazy. That's the lazy man in me, realizing, oh, we have a cheat code for producing content on the internet. So they will prophesy 1,260 days, clothed in sackcloth. When I tell you, if you've never heard who they are, when I tell you who they are, this is important. These are the 2 olive trees. That's a reference to Zechariah 4, and the 2 lampstands standing before the God of the earth. I believe that's the 2 churches. And when the Bible says churches, it's not referring to the building that you go to on Sundays or Tuesdays and Thursdays or whenever it is that you go to church. Church is just the Greek word ecclesia. It means a body of people gathered together for a purpose. So basically, it's a grouping. And Jesus basically consolidates everybody who follows him into 7 categories. So the 2 categories that have nothing to repent from are very likely part of the 2 witnesses. I think they're the 2 lampstands, but we still have 2 olive trees that are feeding oil to the two lampstands. So, and I'm of the opinion that that's two men. And the reason is because of the other attributes that are given about them. And if anyone wants to harm them, fire proceeds from their mouth and devours their enemies. That can be true about two leaders or two groups of people. Basically, you've got two people who love God with all their heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love their neighbor as themselves. And if you're going to attack them, fire comes out of their mouth. I would love to believe if this was literal. Trust me, I would love it if there were two guys who could breathe fire, and anytime somebody tried to attack them. But the unfortunate reality of that is, number one, logistics. How do you breathe fire from your mouth? The only way I know to breathe fire is if you're a fire eater in Las Vegas, to where you're just burning alcohol, and that's not really something that's going to hurt anyone. So the logistics of it would have to be supernatural. So another way of looking at this is fire could also mean truth, where they speak truth, and maybe they're terse about it. Maybe they're abrasive in the way that they respond. Abrasive is important for who I believe the two leaders of the movement are. Fire proceeds from their mouth and devours their enemies. And if anyone wants to harm them, he must be killed in this manner. So killed could refer to death, but it could also refer to reputation. And this is actually used twice here. And I believe one means reputation and one means literally killed. These have power. Oh, so like if anyone wants to harm them, let's see, where is that? Let's see, here it is. And if anyone wants to harm them, this I believe is referring to reputation. I could be wrong. Fire proceeds from their mouth and devours their enemies. So basically what you have here is, if anyone's attacking you and trying to hurt you with words or hurt your reputation, hurt your livelihood, fire proceeds from their mouth, devouring their enemies. This kind of gives you an idea of how you should be behaving in the end time. I'm reminded of the parable of the workers who are given talents. The one who buries his talents is called a wicked and evil servant. Don't bury your talents right now. Time is short. Christ is coming back very soon. You should be very vocal, even if it's maybe you're not good at public speaking, or even if you're afraid of approaching people and talking to people. Push through it. Don't bury your talents. Speak up. Have some boldness and courage, and be courageous and stand on the truth. Love God and love your neighbor as yourself. And if anyone wants to harm them, he must be killed in this manner. So that's interesting. I think that's there's been assassination attempts that have been unsuccessful. I think this is indicative of who could be in the category of the two witnesses. These have power to shut heaven so that no rain falls in the days of their prophecy. And they have power over waters to turn them to blood, and to strike the earth with all plagues as often as they desire. Now let's read some more of this. When they finish their testimony, the beast that ascends out of the bottomless pit, will make war against them, overcome them, and kill them. And their dead bodies will lie in the streets of the great city, which is spiritually called Sodom and Egypt, where our Lord was crucified. Then those from the peoples, tribes, tongues, and nations will see their dead bodies 3.5 days. There's that number 3.5 again. And not allow their dead bodies to be put into graves. And those who dwell on the earth will rejoice over them, make merry, and send gifts to one another, because these two prophets tormented those who dwell on the earth. Now, this is the key for why this channel covers Donald Trump and Elon Musk. I believe that they are the leaders of our movements. Donald Trump and Elon Musk have a knack for tormenting people. Donald Trump's an easy one. Trump derangement syndrome. He literally drives people insane and crazy. And Elon Musk, not so much, but when he started working with Donald Trump on January 20th, 2025, Elon derangement syndrome became a very real mental disorder. I know this because I drive 2 Teslas, and we had people throwing rocks at us. I had little children flipping me off while he was working with Donald Trump. It was the most insane thing. It doesn't happen so much today, since he's kind of separated from working directly with Donald Trump. But when they were together, people were literally firebombing his service centers, his dealerships, for all intents and purposes.
just causing no end of destruction to the average person who drives a Tesla, and just the absolute hatred that people have for Donald Trump and Elon Musk. And even today, you still will lump them. If you ask people who are tormented by them, they lump them together. So, what I believe this is saying is that there's going to be two leaders who sacrifice everything that they have. That's being clothed in sackcloth. Is they're not thinking of themselves. They're using everything that they have. And this is what makes them the olive trees. They're using what they have in order to protect truth and freedom of speech, which is what enables the lampstands to burn bright and to devour their enemies with fire who intend to harm them. So, and the way that works is Elon Musk bought Twitter. He knew he had to do something in order to protect free speech, because if he hadn't, the woke mind virus, as he puts it, was going to dominate, and truth would be buried, and only the woke mind virus would survive. Likewise with Donald Trump, he did the same thing. He started Truth Social. One of the things that saved him financially when they endlessly attacked him with lawsuits and accusations and raids at his home. They tried to bleed him dry of every penny that he had in the bank. At least I remember he had like $500 million in the bank, and they're fined for him for made up lawsuits. His punishment for that, which should have been a couple $1,000, they made it $500 million because they tried to bleed him dry. Well, as it turns out, because he had started Truth Social, as soon as it went public, he was a billionaire again. So anyone who intends to harm them must be killed in this manner. Those people are not in power anymore. Those people that attacked their reputation, they're being burned to the ground right now, which is interesting because in Zechariah 5, what it says about, let's go read this, because this is, I think this is what's the scroll that's written on both sides, sealed with 7 seals. I believe this is what that scroll is. So if you come over here to Zechariah, let's go to 5. So this is, you should know that this is immediately after Zechariah 4 that says, so he said, these are the two anointed ones who stand before the Lord, beside the Lord of the whole earth. So this is where it defines who the olive trees are, the two witnesses. And then immediately after that, it says, then I turned and raised my eyes and saw there a flying scroll, and he said to me, what do you see? So this is, there's a dialogue here with an angel. So he said to me, what do you see? So I answered, I see a flying scroll. Its length is 20 cubits and its width is 10. Then he said to me, this is the curse that goes out over the face of the whole earth. Every thief shall be expelled. That's what's happening right now. According to this side of the scroll, and every perjurer shall be expelled according to that side of the scroll. In other words, it's a scroll that's written on both sides, which just so happens the scroll that's sealed in Revelation 6, or 4, 5, and 6, and 7 and 8. It's a scroll written on both sides that has 7 seals. What I think that is the curse going through the whole earth. The seals represent periods of time and events that go out to affect this. Every perjurer shall be expelled according to that side of it. I will send out the curse, says the Lord of hosts. It shall enter the house of the thief, and the house of the one who swears falsely by my name. It shall remain in the midst of his house and consume it with its timber and stones. Oh, here's where it defines the 4 chariots. Down here in Zechariah 6, then I turned and raised my eyes and looked, and behold, 4 chariots were coming from between 2 mountains. And the mountains were mountains of bronze, and the first chariot was red horses, and the second black horses, and with the third chariot white horses, and the fourth chariot dapple horses, strong steeds. And I answered and said to the angel who talked to me, what are these, my Lord? And the angel answered and said unto me, These are the four spirits of heaven. Interesting. Who go out from their station before the Lord of the whole earth, of all the earth. The one with the black is going to the north country, the white one going after them, and the dappled are going toward the south. Then the strong steeds went out eager to go, that they may walk to and fro. So see, this is why I think that when the horses are used, when it talks about the rider on the red horse, the rider on the black horse, it's referring to spirits that go to and fro on the whole earth. In other words, you're looking for global events. So what the seals in the book of Revelation are referring to, or seems that they're referring to, is events that are this curse. So this is what's happening to us right now. We're living through this. We're living through prophecy. A lot of the Bible is dedicated to this day and age. There are prophets who have waited through the centuries to see what you and I are seeing, and most people are asleep. Most people believe that no man knows the day or hour. Why are you talking about the stars? And they get angry at you. Rightfully so, because you get a lot of people who are speaking from their own heart rather than actually from the data or from what God actually told them. They're making shit up, and it's pissing people off. It's wearing people out, and that's why you have so many false prophets who are saying things that aren't true, that aren't based on anything, and they're just trying to glorify themselves, and it's wearing out the saints. You know, those people, they have a wonderful heart for God, and they want to they want to solve the riddle. They want to know when Christ is coming back, because the world sucks. The world is run by the serpent, it's run by Satan, and it sucks. And they're eager. They want change. They want their Lord to come back and set things right and fix things. Well, unfortunately, many of them are swearing falsely by his name. That's a big no-no. And they're saying things they shouldn't be saying. But this is what the curse does. I see a flying scroll. It says, I will send out the curse, says the Lord of hosts. It shall enter the house of the thief and the house of the ones who swears falsely by my name. It shall remain in the midst of his house and consume it with its timbers and stones. So that's what is happening right now. Let's go back to the timeline. So this is where we're at. Let's go over here. So this is the curse. You're looking at the curse. The four seals here that are opened up are the events that had an impact on the entire earth. COVID, Biden, the United States, and the United Kingdom. We still have yet to understand the full breadth of what happened there. The Al-Aqsa flood, the whole world coming against Israel. Anti-Semitism is at an all-time high. There's also a lot of racism towards white people too. Surprise, surprise. And then, so what's next? So based on this information, I've always asked myself, why are there only 4 living creatures and not 7? Why are there only 4 that say, come and see? Well, I think this is why. Next slide. Here. So I laid this out. So one of the interesting things about 7 is there's this concept in scripture called chiastic structures. It's actually in nature too. It's a very prominent part of nature, and I can prove it. If you look at your body, look at your right hand, your left hand is a mirror image. So if you were to put a mirror right there, you got a mirror image. That's a chiastic structure. It means a mirror image. So if you can see half of it, you can infer what the other half looks like. And I think that's why there's only 4 living creatures, because once you have the information from these 4 living creatures, from once you have half of the information, you can infer what the other half looks like. And for the first time that I'm aware of, we actually have information where we can actually predict the future. I could be wrong about this, and I'm not saying I'm not telling you when Christ is coming back. But I think I can tell you when the next events or the next part of the curse is gonna start. I'm not trying to tell you, no man knows the day or hour. I still think that's true. I think Jesus doesn't even know when he's coming to earth. It's very likely that 3-Eye Atlas is an armada of ships. Jesus is probably in that ship, and he's going to wait. So check this out. So there's if you count the days between the eclipses that mark these seals opening, between seal number 1 and seal number 2 was 353 days. Between seal number 2 and seal number 3 was 178 days. And then between seal number 3 and seal number 4 was 856 days. Actually, that's just a middle point. That's actually not. So you would actually combine these two, 856 times 2. That's how long seal number 4 was. By far it was the longest period of time marked by the seals. But you can divide it in two because of this chiastic structure. So there's a midway point. Yeah, so there's a midway point here, and it has that if you count 856 days, there just happens to be an eclipse which mirrors seal number 3. That eclipse happens on February 17th, 2026. I'm guessing, and this is a guess, based on all of the information I just shared with you, that this is the opening of seal number 5. I don't know what seal number 5, I don't know what that means. I don't have any special information from an angel. Maybe I should fast and pray to see if God will tell me what this is. But right now I don't have any information. All I know is this is very likely the opening of seal number 5. What is seal number 5, you ask? I'm glad you asked. Let's go look. Revelation 6. Seal number 5. When he opened the 5th seal, notice there's no rider on a horse, and there's no living creature saying, "Come and see." I believe the reason is because we don't need to know when this is going to happen, because based on the structure, the chiastic structure, we can infer it. When he opened the 5th seal, I saw under the altar the souls of those who had been slain for the word of God and for the testimony which they held. And they cried with a loud voice, saying, "How long, O Lord, holy and true, until you judge and avenge our blood on those who dwell on the earth?" So you've got a group of people here, probably dead. Some of them are probably alive too, under the altar, who are impatient. How much longer until we see justice? Well, you're in the middle of the curse. It's going to be a little while longer. Here's the answer. Then a white robe was given to each of them, and it was said to them that they should rest a little while longer until both the number of their fellow servants and their brethren who would be killed as they were was completed. It's interesting that there's two groups here, fellow servants and brethren. I wonder if that's a callback to Smyrna and Philadelphia. Those two groups. Anyway, who would be killed as they were. So basically, you've got dead people impatient, and you've got living people who need to die. Just telling you what's written. It's kind of gory, but this is what's written here. This is what seal number 5 is. I think we'll probably have a better understanding of what these things mean when it happens. Prophecy is like that a lot of times, to where when prophecy is given in advance of something, you don't know what it is until it actually happens. And that's one of the big problems with false prophets, is they want to tell you what it is before it happens because they want the glory. They want you to think they're special. They want you to think they're anointed. They want you to think that they come in the name of Jesus and that they're a Messiah like he is, that they're a Christ like he is. But a lot of times you don't know until it happens. And the guiding verse of this channel is John 14:29. I tell you these things beforehand so that when they happen, you will believe. The key word there being when they happen. That's the point of knowing this information. It's not about no man knows the day or hour. It's about knowing that they're coming so that when they happen, you will believe. I have no idea what's going to happen on February 17th, 2026. But what I do know, back to the timeline, what I do know is it fits a pattern. What happened? What is it mirroring? Well, there was a union between the United States and the United Kingdom on the eclipse that mirrors that. So I would assume that there is some kind of a union Maybe that's when the Russia-Ukraine war finally ends. How much longer, Lord? The fact that people, so when somebody's given a white robe, so maybe something happens to the dead in Christ. I don't know. Maybe we get superpowers on this day. Maybe I can start breathing fire. Wouldn't that be awesome? I don't know. Maybe, I mean, we can guess. There's a million things that we can guess. What does it mean based on the information that we have? Is it we're waiting for people to die? So is there? There's been talk. If you take what's happening today, I mean, this is only 2.5 months away, closer to 3 months, I guess. Yeah, right about 3 months, because today's Jesus the 17th. There you go. So you got the from 17 to 17. No, it's 2 months away. Is it 2 months? So from December to January is 1 month. January to February is 2 months. Yeah, so we're literally 2 months away from this happening. Let the guessing games begin on what's going to happen on February 17th, 2026. The fact that, I mean, we could say that it's mirroring seal number 3, so maybe there's something with that, whatever happened on when this eclipse happened. But the fact that people were waiting for people to die as they were to be completed, maybe there's another Aloxa flood type thing. I hope not. There's been talk of one happening in the United States. We're seeing things like the Bondi Beach massacre on the rise, so maybe we expect more of that kind of stuff. What the seals do is they mark the beginnings of events, of things happening. So this is going to mark the start of something that's going to happen for 176 days. So I don't know what it is, but when it happens, I'm sure we'll know. And now you know, and you should watch the eclipse. Maybe this is when, I don't know. Anyway, moving on. So 176 days, and then you have another eclipse on August 12th, 2026. And this is what I think could potentially, if there's going to be any rapture high watch time, I would say this would be a good time for a rapture high watch or an escape from the earth. So if Three Eye Atlas is an armada and it's going to come and rescue people off of the earth, or if it's like a Noah's Ark kind of situation, and this is when it's going to come and collect those before the total destruction, this would be a good time for that to happen. Because seal number 6 is very interesting. So this is seal number 6. I looked when he opened the 6th seal, and behold, there was a great earthquake. And the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became like blood. This could be indicative of the magnetic poles shift, where the North Pole rotates down to the South Pole, because to get a solar eclipse and a blood moon at the same time, I believe, and we need to do some kind of simulation on this, I believe would involve the Earth having to literally rotate, because it would have to be with starts with a solar eclipse and then it rotates to where the moon is now in the atmosphere so that it has a blood red effect. This could be indicative of the magnetic pole shift. And the stars of heaven fell to earth. I don't know if I doubt this is referring to what is traditionally known as the wandering stars. I doubt this is the planets. Very likely satellites. We have a lot of stuff in our atmosphere, and we have a lot of stuff in orbit around the earth. And if the magnetic pole shift happens, our shields around the earth are already really weak. That's common knowledge right now. That's very public. It's becoming more and more apparent. You're hearing bigger shows talk about it, like Tim Pool, who's got several million followers. He's been talking about this a lot, the weakening of the shields. He's had Ben Davidson from the Suspicious Observers on his show multiple times, on multiple of his shows. He's got more than one show. Yeah, and the stars of heaven fell to earth. This could be meteorites, could be, I think it's satellites. There's a lot of stuff up in our atmosphere. I think that probably the rotating of the earth causes them to fall to the earth. As fig trees drop its late figs when it is shaken by a mighty wind. I can't remember where it is, but in the days of Noah, he talks about the earth wobbling to and fro like a drunkard. Ben Davidson brought that up when we had him on the show, talking about when the magnetic poles could shift. At that time, he was saying 2040, 2050. He's since revised his time to where it could happen. He's pretty much said it could happen at any time, but he's still estimating like late 2030. But it's continuing to increase its speed at which it very likely could happen in 2026. Then the sky receded as a scroll when it is rolled up. I asked Ben Davidson about this, what it would look like if you were looking at the stars, and this is what he described. He said, the stars that you're looking at that have been in the same position that don't really move will start to move and roll up. Depending on where you are in the earth, maybe it rolls down, but it'll roll up and you'll be looking at a different section of the sky, which would fit the description of the sky receded as a scroll when it is rolled up. And this is the real kicker right here. Every mountain and every island was moved out of its place. Either the tectonic plates on the entire planet shift, or the whole Earth moves in a way that it doesn't normally move. It's very likely the magnetic pole shift, so that the North Pole rotates down to the equator. Then this statement will be true. Every mountain and island will have been moved out of its place. You're going to have mountains and islands that used to be at the equator that are no longer at the equator, and you're going to have new ones at the North and South Pole. And the kings of the earth, the great men, the rich men, the commanders, the mighty men, every slave and every free man hid themselves in the caves and in the rocks of the mountains, and said to the mountains and the rocks, fall on us and hide us from the face of him who sits on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb. For the great day of his wrath has come. Who is able to stand? This is seal number 6. We can see these things happening. They're becoming more and more mainstream. And as it become, if all the news organizations start talking about this, if Trump and Elon Musk, people with big loud voices start to talk about the magnetic pole shift, fear is going to come on the whole earth. It's probably why they're not talking about it. People who know aren't talking about it. But you know what's really weird? There's a lot of billionaires who have suddenly decided to build bunkers. Zuckerberg is building a really big one in Hawaii. Bezos is building one. A lot of people are suddenly deciding to build bunkers, maybe because they know something that's not really publicly available. And it could happen as early as 2026. But this would be the start of a lot of stuff on the earth. And this isn't the end. So you got the rotation of the earth. Here, let's go back to this. So you've got seal number 5, whatever that is, happening. People are impatient. We're waiting for more brethren and servants to die. Seal number 6, that's when the earth really starts to kind of go through some stuff. And then I've got some alternative candidates here. So I've been trying to count the 1,260 days. So I think Donald Trump and Elon Musk are the two witnesses, obviously. That's what we do here on this channel. Every day we do what's called the daily Torment report, where I go through and I read the posts from Donald Trump on Truth Social and the posts from Elon Musk on X.com. And without fail, they post every single day, even if it's just one post. Usually on the days where it's one post, they're very busy and in the public eye anyway. So it still fits the fact that they're prophesying for 1,260 days. People don't accept easily. As far as I know, I'm the only guy on the entire internet who have even had the gall to put forth the possibility that Donald Trump and Elon Musk could be the two witnesses. Most people think it's Elijah and Enoch, Moses and Elijah, Joseph and Zerubbabel, the Old Testament, New Testament, the sun and the moon. There's a lot of interpretations for who the two witnesses could be. And I'm just going off the information that we have. Observation, keeping track of these things, and a deep, deep love for my creator and a deep, deep appreciation and love for his son and what he sacrificed for me and you. And I'm very excited for him to return. So given all of the information, the timeline, it seems that the two witnesses should be doing their thing, right? So, but what I don't know is when to start the count. It could start because there's different indicators. I won't go through all of them. We'll be here forever. There are different indicators in the scripture. Do you count from when seal number 4? So the Al-Aqsa flood, because there's a association with 3.5 years starting with seal number 4. So do you start from the Al-Aqsa flood? Do you start from Operation Iron Sword when Israel responded? That's what these counts are here, right here. So you've got the potential end of the 1,260 days. Or do you start from when Trump was declared the winner of the presidential election? That was November 6, 2024. Or do you count from when he started office, when he was officially sworn in as the president of the United States? This is the count I go by because, number one, it's the furthest one out. So these ones can happen. So we could watch these ones, and if nothing happens, well, we've got more to look at. This is technically when Donald Trump and Elon Musk started working together. So Donald Trump took office and Elon Musk took office with him as he started the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE. So this is where I count from. So on the daily Torment reports, I always put what day we have. Today is day 332, I think, out of 1,260. That count is based on January 20th, 2025, which, if I'm right about that, then that would mean that the two witnesses are killed on July 3rd, 2028, which it's interesting because that would imply that they are here through seal number 7, which brings us to the reason why there's two different timelines here. Is I don't know if, remember, the seals represent a period of time. And seal number 6 seems to imply the rotation of the earth. Seal number 7 is when you start to see the God's wrath. So it's like seal number 6 is like the Lamb's wrath, and then seal number 7 is like the start of God's wrath. And that's when you get the bowl judgments, and like there's a total reset of the earth. and the punishment of people, which is like the end of the curse. So the reason why there's two timelines here, let's see, I'm over here, is so notice here that the start of seal number 7 is August 2nd, 2027. Well, that's a year. That's a year before the possibility of these two witnesses being in the street for 3.5 days. So the reason I picked this one here, 9/18/2031, is because of the 7-year timeline. Is I went from Tishri 1 to Tishri 1. That was 7 years. And then from Tishri 1 to Tishri 1, another 7 years. That brings us to 2031. So that would be the farthest out of everything of all the events happening that it could go out to. So that would mean that the two witnesses, could be killed, 3 or 4 years before the end of this whole cycle. So that's why there's kind of two calendars here. This is the overall one based on a 14-year period of time. And this is the one that's really tracking the seals opening and the chiastic structure of those seals of this. So you've got, seal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah. So with all of that, that brings us to BP. This is from his channel. Is this a fleet? Is this Jesus waiting to show up? Is he waiting for his father to say when? When it's time to go. When it's time to go get your bride. And when would that be? Well, it's interesting that this is out there waiting. Would that be I know it ain't seal number 5. because we're told to wait a little longer. Maybe this is when he starts contacting people and we know he's out there. I don't know. It's probably not going to be here, but the fact that seal number 6 is right here, August 12th, 2026, is it possible that that is a Noah's Ark kind of a situation? That's why I said this would be the high watch time for a rapture type of event. If there's going to be any kind of an escape from the things that are coming on the whole earth, this is a good candidate for when the pole shift could happen. And I don't know about you. I don't want to be on the planet when that happens. Ben Davidson, he's done all the calculations. He did this a long time ago. And he determined where the safest place to be when the poles shift. Colorado, mountains of Colorado. He's purchased property up there, named it Observers Ranch, and he's building a community of survivors. You can go there if you want. You can apply to go live on his compound if you have skills that you want to bring. He's preparing. They're well underway. They've got cafeterias and schools and meeting halls and cabins to live in and land to farm. He's got the whole shebang set up out there. Question is, are we going to be here? Or is Jesus going to show up in the clouds? Let's go back to where we were here. Then there will appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and then all the peoples of the earth will mourn when they see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. Is that when he's going to show up? Maybe that's when people know. Should have got my shit together. Who gets a ticket to get on board? It talks about one will be taken, the other will be left. 2 will be in the field, one will be taken, one will be left. 2 will be in bed, one will be taken, one will be left. All I know is there's a lot of evidence saying follow the Lamb and love God and love your neighbor as yourself. So I hope you're in the audience tonight, BP Earthwatch. That's pretty much the end of what I wanted to show you, but that's pretty much the short version. That's the 2-hour version of the data. There's a lot more data. There's a lot of stuff I didn't actually cover on the timeline here. So there's like, oh, I did tell you I would show you. Jupiter started its 42-week retrograde on February 6, 2017. It was still in retrograde in September 23rd, 2017, and it exited Virgo on November 23rd, 2017. So in essence, that's when it was born. But I also got on here another wonder in heaven, the dragon whose tail draws a third of the stars of heaven. That's fun to go through. But there's a lot more data. I've got like videos of what happened on these days. I have imagery for all of the eclipses. There's a lot of stuff. But there you go. There's a good possibility that Jesus could be waiting for his Father to say, go get your bride. And you want to make sure that you've got your lamp filled with oil. Now is the time, like I said, now is the time to not hide your talents. Now is the time to speak up, to stand up, to love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, regardless of the pressure, of the danger, regardless of the death threats. You're the one who's breathing fire. Breathe fire for those who would intend to harm you. I think we're supernaturally protected, but some of us will die, like Charlie Kirk. Everything that's happening, it seems to be a harvest. This seems to be, I don't know, given the fact that there's a lot of death, it wouldn't surprise me if this isn't the sickle of the angels reaping the earth, which is ripe to be harvested. Because if this isn't the harvest, I don't know what is. One thing I do know is that this is very likely the curse, because that I can support with scripture. All right. So we're at about 10 minutes, so I'm going to go through. I haven't been kept up on any chat. I've just kind of been in the zone. Let me see what you guys have to say if you have any questions. All right, let's see. When or where does the 3 days of this again? The 3 days of darkness, I believe, I'm sure Fury responded to this, but isn't that a Catholic thing? That's not in the scripture. Yeah. Haha, I watched some of his videos just now. Welcome. Sorry, I know you. Let's see. What else have we got? Any questions in here? Trump is supposed to announce war with Venezuela tonight. Yeah, I didn't really get to any of the posts. Maybe we'll do a quick review. I'll probably what I'll do is cover the majority, since we went so long tonight on this timeline video. Maybe what I'll do is just cover today, unless there's anything that really should be announced that we should pay attention to. Maybe we'll just do a quick review to see if there's anything important to draw attention to, but we'll cover it in detail tomorrow. There's a time to know. It's probably what's going on with Christians being killed everywhere. Yeah, seal number 4. There's a lot of death on seal number 4, which it's interesting because Trump keeps quoting the numbers of the amount of death in Russia, Ukraine. But yeah, there's a lot of conflicts that were going on around the world. Trump, as he said, he's brought the end to 9 of them at this point. So there's a lot of death that we're not aware of, that's not publicly reported. So it's entirely possible that what is said about seal number 4 with the permission to kill by, the beasts and plagues and stuff like that has been going on for whatever 856 days times 2 is, 1,700 days. Okay, not too many questions. Let us go through here real quick, and we'll. Oops, almost hit end show. Wrong button. This one. Okay, and let's go. We'll go peruse really quick. That's not important. Not important. Not important. These are a bunch of endorsements. Hamas marks 38 years since its founding. Cites October 7th massacre as a milestone. Yeah. Trump orders a blockade of sanctioned oil tankers. Yep. What is this? 4 minutes long. Let's see what this is.
All right, another bombshell revelation today shows just how weaponized the DOJ was under Joe Biden. Now, shocking new memos turned over to Congress today, revealed that the FBI warned the DOJ repeatedly they did not have probable cause for that raid at Mar-a-Lago. But under pressure from Biden's weaponized DOJ, they conducted the raid anyway. Among the shocking revelations, including one email revealing the FBI field office did not believe and articulated this to the DOJ. They had, quote, established probable cause for the search warrant for classified records at Mar-a-Lago. Despite this, another agent wrote, quote, DOJ has opined that they do have probable cause, requesting a wide scope, including residence, office, storage space. One official even warned that the information they had was just from a single source, not corroborated, and may have even been dated. Earlier today, on a post on X, FBI Director Kash Patel did confirm the documents, writing in part, quote, we just turned over documents to Capitol Hill to be made public, showing that the FBI told DOJ that they did not have probable cause for raiding President Trump's home at Mar-a-Lago, but DOJ didn't give a damn. They did it anyway. Here with the very latest, justthenews.com founder, editor-in-chief, and chief investigative reporter, John Solomon. And remember, John, the FBI had access that was given to them by President Trump and his team, open access to the Mar-a-Lago. After they left, they called and said, by the way, would you put another lock on one particular storage room? They complied. Nothing would have prevented them from coming back any time they wanted, but no probable cause?
Yeah, well, that's what these emails show. First, they show that the Trump administration or the Trump a team and his lawyer were cooperating. And in fact, the FBI wanted to leverage that cooperation.
All right, we don't need to watch that whole thing. I think we get the idea. Unreasonable search and seizure. Brown. Why did Brown University have so few cameras? Yeah. Fake press. That same thing. Okay, so that's all Trump posted. And let's go see what Elon posted. Switch sides. Every time I fix that, it goes back. All right. We'll skip all the Starlink. This was good. So Elon has lately been on a path against the EU, posting videos like this. This is great.
Next video. That is on the right side of the screen. That is a male named Marcy Bowers. That's a man. The woman in the center is Dr. Johanna Olsen Kennedy. This was a leaked video. This was an internal video conference they were having. And they're discussing the ability of boys who started puberty blockers at Tanner stage 2. Tanner stage 2 is the beginning of puberty. This is when you first develop pubic hair. It's when girls' breast buds first start to form. So these kids are all 10, 11, 12 years old. And that's when they start them on these drugs. Again, these drugs have never been approved for this purpose. These are prostate cancer drugs. These are drugs for endometriosis, for uterine fibroids. But they happen to stop puberty. So they're discussing how it's destroying the future sexual function of all these boys. They admit to this, and I want you to hear it from them.
The second is was an observation that I had that every single child who was, or adolescent who was truly blocked at Tanner stage 2 has never experienced orgasm. I mean, it's really about zero. These are just assigned male at birth, so trans feminine, and it's because they never in their lives are exposed to testosterone. That doesn't change. So blockers prevent the rise of testosterone, and they don't really go on testosterone at or around surgery or into adulthood. And so we don't know. They're going to have this sensation. There's no question about that. But are they going to be able to achieve sexual satisfaction? It's important in relationships. And I know that from my work with female genital mutilation survivors, that the lack of being able to be intimate with a partner is very important. And so this is what really raised the red flag for me, is to say, look, we need to have our eyes open about it. I think it's been beneficial talking about it. I know Joe and many others have reported to me, they've changed their approach a little bit in their informed consent models, and that we're talking about masturbation now. We're talking about, okay, that's an area of the body that's got very dysphoric for you, but you know what? It's all a penis is just a large clitoris. I mean, it's all the same material. It really is. So, use it for the pleasurable purposes, partially that it was intended, and we'll see what happens. But these are to be answered questions. So, can we avoid puberty and get good adult results? And secondly, how do we assure someone that they're going to be able to be sexually responsive? Do we remove the blockers during the course of their adolescence and let a little bit of puberty come back? Do we delay it a little bit, maybe into Tanner's 3 or 4, maybe before they have their first orgasms? Maybe.
I apologize for the graphic nature of this. It's important to understand. That's the president of WPATH. That all the countries that you represent, they write the standards of care. All the countries, gender clinics, all follow their standards of care. The UN pushes their standards of care. The WHO pushes their standards of care.
Wow.
That's the president. And what's he saying there? He's saying, what do we do? Do we let a little bit of puberty happen? Do we take them off the blockers, let a little puberty happen? Do we delay the puberty blockers? They don't know what they're doing. They don't know. He admits it. This is an experiment on children. the most vulnerable children among our society.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's right. We were supposed to stay on tonight and cover the Trump speech. So basically, maybe what I'll do is we'll spend a little bit of time here going through Elon Musk's posts. I'll end the stream and start a new one to cover the Trump's announcement. As I'm reading Elon, or not Elon, Fury has said, let's see, Venezuela started escorting ships, and Trump said he was going to Congress and asked them to declare war. His speech doesn't start until 9 p.m. Yeah, so 9 Eastern time. So that's 30 minutes. Maybe we'll just go for a half an hour and then we'll switch over to covering that. We'll just have another 3-hour video. I'll cut this one up into smaller videos and then repost it later. There you go. That's the plan. All right, well, I guess we'll continue to go through the Torment report. All right. What do we got here? So this is Starlink stuff. So this was posted yesterday.
This next video.
This was posted yesterday after the show. Yeah, that's where we ended off. And then this, Starlink quietly builds the biggest network Earth has ever seen. Starlink has now placed 9,400 satellites in orbit, making it one of the largest satellite constellations ever assembled. It would not surprise me if these are not the stars that fall to Earth. Look at all that. I mean, like, there's 9,000 satellites. Now, at the end of their life, they tend to burn up in the atmosphere. But will they still burn up if the magnetic shields are weakened so much that the Earth rotates? Some of them surely have got to make it to Earth. And if you've seen the increase in size, they're on version 3 right now. It's like 10 times bigger than version 1. They're getting bigger, meaning more and more stuff's going to probably make it through burn up. I don't think Elon is anticipating the magnetic pole shift. Or maybe he is. Maybe he knows exactly what he's doing. All right, what is this?
I just don't think that will pass the tests that it needs to pass. And furthermore,
what kind of tests?
More like crash tests, pedestrian safety, stuff like that.
Stuff like that. Stuff like that. Stuff like that.
Oh, we missed it already? Darn it. It was 8:30 Central Time. Alrighty. I guess we'll go back to our first plan and just skip through the timeline and we'll go find it. So this is this guy mocking that the Cybertruck's not going to pass safety tests, and then Elon is reposting that it earns the IIHS Top Safety Pick Plus, which is really common for his trucks because they if you're not aware, they design their vehicles to pretty much break the testing equipment, and they've done their fair share of breaking the testing equipment. So people were skeptical that the Cybertruck was not going to be safe. It's safe. Trump announced the government is sending 1,176 to military service members before Christmas, which he referred to as warrior dividends. Aw, that's nice. See, Elon email from 2013 on why SpaceX should stay private until it's reached certain technological milestones. Public company stocks, particularly if big step changes and technologies are involved, go through extreme volatility, both for reasons of internal execution and for reasons that have nothing to do with anything except the economy. This causes people to be distracted by the manic depressive nature of stock instead of creating great products. Yeah, we don't have to read the whole thing to understand that. It's getting ready to go public. I think they've reached those milestones. Here's a picture of Mars. This picture was taken on Mars. Usually these are taken on the day that they're posted, so this was probably taken recently. I can't wait for humanity to set foot on Mars. It looks amazing. That will be a glorious day for civilization. Neuralink. A paralyzed man was able to use his mind to control a robotic arm and feed himself. We've seen lots of these. Pretty amazing. These guys have said that it's just like using your regular arm. It's not like they think up, right, left, down. They just the same process that you lifting your arm up to your mouth is the same feeling of them operating the arm. It's pretty cool. Breaking. Gwen Shotwell, SpaceX, number 20 on Forbes list of the most powerful women of 2025. Isn't she the COO of SpaceX? Hungary has moved to criminalize NGO and other groups who assist illegal immigrants. He said he posted wise. See, we could achieve so much. Potential beauty is limitless. When I see people arguing from a zero-sum mindset, I want to shake them and show them the future I see. We are just at the beginning. We will always be at just the beginning. Let go of envy and we'll carry you there. Elon says, indeed, zero-sum thinking is the root of so much envy and cynicism. You might want to study that question a little harder next time. Study predicts both Ford and GM will overtake Tesla by 2025. Sorry. That's pretty funny.
Here's where I think solar energy is very much underestimated in terms of its capability. So if you think about what would the Earth be without the sun, the Earth would be a frozen dark ice ball at roughly 3 degrees above absolute zero. It would be quite unpleasant. So, very cold and dark. But because of the sun, we're at quite a nice temperature, quite pleasant. Sort of roughly 300 degrees above absolute zero. And the sun powers almost the entire.
So Elon's making a case for building data centers in space because of the advantages of being closer to the sun. They get sun 24 hours a day and the cooling is less of an issue. So a lot less material with a lot more power and a lot more capability. We'll see how that goes, given what we looked at in the timeline today. There are many hours of conversations with Elon and roughly 300 interviews available online. That's at least 450 hours. In all of them, he is thoughtful, courageous, polite, and restrained. He always wants to help humanity. That's what I believe is being clothed in sackcloth, is he uses his resources to help humanity. All of his resources, as a matter of fact. The reason for all of his companies is what are the greatest things he can do to help humanity. Trump's the same way. He's sacrificed all of his wealth and riches for helping America. And God continues to bless both of these men. That's why I think they're anointed and they stand before the Lord of the whole earth. The only times he attacks is when he identifies evil in someone's actions. And I support that. But heaven forbid if in one random post, despite all the good he does, all the lives he saves and helps, one emoji like this from him and all the predators waiting in the wings will pounce on the opportunity to say whatever comes into their heads. We, Elon's community, will always stand beside him. Aw, that's true. It just finished. Let's see. I just finished a 3-day trip. Okay. That's just a reason for full self-driving. Let's see. Elon Musk in 2019 on LiDAR.
You don't like LiDAR. And this...
LiDAR is lame. LiDAR is lame.
That, isn't there like a case where at some point, 99999 down the road, where actually LiDAR may be helpful, and why not have it as some sort of a redundancy or backup? So that's my first question. And the second, so you can still have your focus on computer vision, but just have it as a redundant. And my second question is, if that is true, what happens to the rest of the industry that's building their autonomy solutions on LiDAR?
They're all going to dump LiDAR. That's my prediction. Mark my words. I should point out that I don't actually super hate LiDAR as much as it may sound, but at SpaceX, SpaceX Dragon uses LiDAR to navigate to the space station and dock. Not only that, SpaceX developed its own LiDAR from scratch to do that, and I spearheaded that effort personally, because in that scenario, LiDAR makes sense. And in cars, it's friggin' stupid. It's expensive and unnecessary, and as Andre was saying, once you solve vision, it's worthless.
Yeah, so the argument here, if you don't know what he's talking about, is LiDAR is a type of radar that sends out a signal in order to get an image of what's around it. Teslas have had they've had radar on the cars before, and they've had ultrasonic sensors, and they've had cameras, and ultimately they've come to, and Elon's really good about this, like when you're building something to replicate something that God created, you want to replicate God's solution because it's the better solution. And his argument against LiDAR is if we can drive, because one of the arguments for LiDAR is you can see things that you can't see with the naked eye, like when it's foggy out. LiDAR can see better than a camera. His argument is if you can see well enough to drive in the fog, cameras can see better. They can. Because there's filters that you can put on cameras that can see through, it can remove the light that's bouncing off the moisture molecules and stuff like that, so that it can see better and cleaner. You don't need LiDAR. It's an expensive solution that you can get a very similar result with cameras. So they've gone all in on cameras. And if it's so foggy that you need LiDAR in order to navigate, unless all vehicles on the road have LiDAR, it doesn't make sense because the danger comes from others. Anyway, that's his argument for why LiDAR is unnecessary. Too expensive of an investment. And the reason is they've been there. They've done that. All right. The UK has become a prison island. Yep. Loner is jailed for 18 months for 2 anti-immigration tweets made after Christmas market car crash that were viewed just 33 times. Good Lord. So this is one of the reasons why I think that the yoking together of the United States and the United Kingdom is important. I think what's going on in the UK is meant to be going on in the US, but Trump is a hindrance to that, which is very likely why the beasts rise up from the bottomless pit and wants to take him out. Elon too. The fact that Elon is bringing these things to the forefront and making it so that we have a place to speak the truth, so that you can't be easily canceled. These two men are standing. They're standing in the gap so that two churches, Smyrna and Philadelphia, have oil in their lamps so that they can burn bright, so that you can continue to let your little light so shine. All right, what's this?
When I see people like perhaps, including some very smart people, taking an attitude of like doing things that seem like morally questionable, it's often because they have at a base sort of axiomatic level a zero-sum mindset. If you have a zero-sum mindset, then the only way to get ahead is by taking things from others. If the pie is fixed, then the only way to have more pie is to take someone else's pie. But this is false. Like, obviously the pie has grown dramatically over time, the economic pie. So in reality, there's a lot of pie.
Yeah.
Pie is not fixed.
Yes.
So it's much better to work on adding to the economic pie, creating more than you consume. When I see
Wise man, that Elon. Let's see. This is Abdul Hamed, a boat migrant from Nigeria. He climbed through a woman's window, raped her twice while her children were asleep in the next room. He was jailed for just 6 months in Swindon Crown Court, costing us $250,000. No deportation. Yeah, a lot of that stuff. All right, we're gonna zip through here. Keep going a little quicker.
Tesla is an American car company you can sort of refer to. I think we'll think of as hey, this is a car company that you can really be proud of, as an American. Just as we're very proud of, the Apples and Googles and whatnot, Intel, Cisco. This is a car company where, for the first time in a long time, the United States is the leader in automotive technology. And it's just interesting to note that you've got Daimler, the company that invented the internal combustion engine car, that's coming to Tesla and having us supply them with electric powertrain components. You've got Toyota, the largest car company in the world, and the leader in hybrids, also coming to Tesla to supply them with electric powertrain. I think people would have.
So hard to not watch all these. Is Trump posting more? Is that where you're getting this information from, Fury? No? Did I just skip over? Rachel Warnock was on Meet the Fake Press with one-sided and very biased Kristen Welker as the hostess. Warnock spent the entire show using religion to try and divide the country. If a Republican, in particular me, made those statements, it would be front page news. He ended by saying that he was going to his church to preach now. And while I think that's fine, I do say whatever happened to separation of church and state, that would be the first thing they would use against us. But actually, it's something that never much bothered me. Anyway, Warnock is a lightweight whose wife correctly states that he tried to run her over with a car. Fortunately, she was able to get out of the way and only almost lost her foot. Warnock is a bad guy in NBC News, which is second to only ABC Fake News for being the worst. Should be ashamed of themselves and allowing garbage interviews with talented and uncaring people to take place. The public airwaves, which these networks are using at no charge, should not be allowed to get away with this any longer. They should be properly licensed and pay significant amounts of money for using this very valuable public space. Thank you for your attention to this matter. From other sites. Kind of make me curious, though, like what I skipped over. Unreasonable search and seizure. This was FBI criminal raid. All right. Trump orders a blockade of sanctioned oils. This is the one you mentioned. Trump orders a blockade of sanctioned oil tankers entering Venezuela. Washington, December 16th, Reuters. U.S. President Donald Trump ordered on Tuesday a blockade of all sanctioned oil tankers entering and leaving Venezuela, in Washington's latest move to increase pressure on Nicolas Maduro's government. I thought Maduro conceded. Man, I should have paid more attention to that. Obviously not. Targeting its main source of income. It is unclear how Trump will impose the move against the sanctioned vessels and whether he will turn to the Coast Guard to interdict vessels like he did last week. The administration has moved thousands of troops and nearly a dozen warships, including an aircraft carrier, to the region. Donald Trump has the power to turn the waters to blood. We might be seeing that. For the theft of our assets and many other reasons, including terrorism, drug smuggling, and human trafficking, the Venezuelan regime has been designated a foreign terrorist organization. Trump wrote on Truth Social, therefore today I'm ordering a total and complete blockade of all sanctioned oil tankers going into and out of Venezuela. In a statement, Venezuela's government said it rejected Trump's grotesque threat. Yeah, good luck with that, guys. Oil prices rose more than 1% in Asian trade on Wednesday. Brent crude futures, LCOC1, were up 70 cents or 1.2 cents at $59.62 a barrel. All right, we're not going to read all that. Interesting. Anything else we missed? Hamas calls October 7th a towering milestone. From the Jerusalem Post, Hamas marks 38 years since its founding, cites October 7th as a milestone, which, we covered is very likely the opening of seal number 4, the first, I don't know if you want to call him rider, death, followed by hell. In a statement on December 14th, Hamas tied its anniversary to the October 7th attack and alleged Israeli violations of a ceasefire framework as mediators continue talks on a broader deal. Hamas called the October 7th a towering milestone in a statement commemorating the 38th anniversary of its founding. Al-Aqsa flood was a towering milestone in our people's march. I don't think it's any coincidence that the scripture says the dragon cast a flood out after the woman. We know the woman is Israel. And the fact that they used flood in this really makes me, and the fact that it was intended to completely destroy Israel, but it didn't, seems as though it was the flood that the earth swallowed up. Was a towering milestone in our people's march towards freedom and independence, and it will remain a firmly established landmark marking a true beginning for repelling the occupation and ending the presence of our land. The terror group then said it would pursue its objectives regardless of the sacrifices, while asserting that Israel had failed to achieve its war aims. This is one of the reasons why I think there could be another Al-Aqsa flood, because you know what the dragon does after he casts a flood out after the woman? He goes after her children. And that's why I think February 17th, there could be another an Al-Aqsa flood type of a thing. I don't know. Again, like I said, I have no idea. We stand with pride and honor before the steadfastness, bravery, sacrifice, and resilience of our great people in all arenas. Foremost among them, our people in Gaza. Anyway, we don't need to keep reading that. Anything else? Terrorist sympathizers need to be removed from our government. If the welfare fraud in Minnesota is this bad, imagine how bad the voter fraud is. Gotta love Trump's you gotta love his fiery posts. I almost wonder if fire from his mouth isn't mean tweets. Cocaine was found at Biden's house. A dead body was found at Obama's house. A male prostitute was found at Pelosi's house. An illegal server was found at the Clintons' house. So the FBI raided Trump's house. All right, we don't need to read memes. As much as I would like to in the effort of time, we're already at 2.5 hours. Let's see. Just as a balanced yoke does, so does cloud. Group, like a cloud of birds, witnesses. A cloud is a group of particles. When translating, needing a concordance. Dictionary is a must. Translating easier. Yeah. All right. Let's try and finish off Elon's post here. All right, we're going to skip Grok and Starlink and full self-driving and Tesla stuff and just cover the meaty stuff. I was told the Muslim immigrants were invading the UK to escape climate change and oppression. Turns out they were just coming for the white girl raping. Oh, God. Let's see. 4 communist activities: infiltrate, agitate, desecrate, confiscate. The 3 communist targets: family, religion, and poverty. James Lindsay. True. NASA. Let's see. Teens who laughed about running over retired police chief received maximum prison sentences. Good. Let's see. At minute 13 of the Clean Tech Summit 2011, Musk highlights the immense challenges in funding. Yeah, we don't need to read that. We've already covered this interview quite a lot. Elon Musk argues that it is easy to donate money just to look like a good person, but it is extremely hard to use that money to actually make a real difference in the world. He is absolutely right. Starship, Starlink, New X, Starlink. Long term, the choice is clear. Okay, Starlink, Tesla chips. We're going to skip this stuff just because it's just business, not really prophecy. An Iraqi immigrant working as home care and staff in Sweden raped a 100-year-old woman in her home. His punishment, 4 years in prison. He will not be deported even though he has citizenship in Iraq because it would be disproportionate, said the judge, Mohammed. Welcome to the new Sweden. Elon's been bringing a lot of this stuff to the forefront, what's happening around the world because of these immigrants, what they're coming in and they're doing these horrific things, and there's not been sufficient punishment. Poland did not allow uncontrolled immigration. There are only 2 genders. Amen. Back in 2018, before I joined, okay, that's autopilot. What's this? Carmack is awesome. Programming legend. So this is just praise of Elon. That's 5 minutes. We don't need to watch that. Grok Imagine. Oh, the Exodus. Interesting. Check this out. So Elon Musk reposted a Grok Imagine animation of the Exodus. How cool is that? I love it. One of my most viewed all-time Substack posts was about how race is used in college admissions to bar amazing and highly qualified students from admissions in favor of inferior students simply because they're straight white boys. Yeah, a lot of that been happening. We seem to be getting closer and closer to a situation where nobody is responsible for what they did, but we are all responsible for what somebody else did. Thomas Sowell. Full self-driving, Cybertruck, safety. Here's another Grok Imagine that's pretty cool. Humans used to build cool things. Grok is amazing. So this is them building the pyramids. That's awesome. Javier Malay on censorship in the UK. Since the socialists came to power, they have been jailing people for posting on social media, and the journalists here would like that too, because they don't like that they have lost the monopoly of the microphone. All right, let's see what he has to say.
Since the socialists came to power, they have been jailing people for posting on social media, and the journalists here would like that too, because they don't like that they have lost the monopoly of the microphone and the ability to use that tool to extort and smear, to defame without any cause. Social media makes them accountable, and they don't like it. Stop searching. Ghosts, they're getting the same treatment they gave, but now people are doing it organically because they realized many of them are criminals. Since the socialists came to power.
Grok, let's see. We're building the future of XAI. Let's see. The takers, like Bernie, will eventually follow the makers, but they're cowards too and lack any sense of adventure. So they will wait until it is safe. True. You could not have made to the point any clearer that it will be easier to build things in space and colonize new planets than unwind bureaucratic grift and regulation capture. Yeah, so Elon Musk in the Joe Rogan interview, when asked if he made any progress and if he thinks that you can fix Washington, Elon Musk pretty definitively said no. It's beyond repair. It's so bad, so entrenched, and so overwhelmingly large that the best we could hope is to make a small difference. So it'll be easier to colonize a new planet than to unwind bureaucratic grift and regulation capture. Yep. See, the British government just as utterly failed to protect its citizens. Yeah. The UK government and judiciary is broken. All right, getting close to the end here. And we'll go pop over to find the Trump announcement. A sincere thanks to the team behind Grok. Of course, Elon Musk. Italian bureaucracy was a nightmare. SpaceX is providing connectivity. Grok 4. This is on slavery. We've seen this like last week. Grok 4. Grok Voice. Grokathon in London. And his pinned post for the week. Either the suicidal empathy of Western civilization ends or Western civilization will end. From Gad Saad. In response to God Saad. Please try to be empathetic and look the other way as your civilization is being raped and murdered into oblivion. Die kindly. There you go. All right, so that is the end of Elon Musk's posts. Let's see if we can find Donald Trump announcement today.
This is what the Biden administration allowed to happen to our country, and it can never be allowed to happen again. We had men playing in women's sports, transgender for everybody, crime at record levels with law enforcement and words such as that just absolutely forbidden. We had the worst trade deals ever made, and our country was laughed at from all over.
I thought you said we missed that. Let's
America over the world 11 months ago. But they're not laughing at a mess, and I'm fixing more. When I took office, anything like the worst, and I think most would agree. I was elected in a landslide, winning the popular vote and all 7 swing states.
I don't
and
think
everything
this is
else
live.
with a
Trump. I think
mandate
this was live
to take on a sick and corrupt system
for agenda-free TV. I think this is the video. Come on. All right, let's watch this video. I think this is what he's watching.
And some would say in the history of our country, which caused prices to be higher than ever before, making life unaffordable for millions and millions of Americans. This happened during a Democrat administration, and it's when we first began hearing the word affordability. Our border was open, and because of this, our country was being invaded by an army of 25 million people, many who came from prisons and jails, mental institutions, and insane asylums. They were drug dealers, gang members, and even 11,888 murderers, more than 50% of whom killed more than one person. This is what the Biden administration allowed to happen to our country, and it can never be allowed to happen again.
That's right.
We had men playing in women's sports, transgender for everybody, crime at record levels with law enforcement, and words such as that just absolutely forbidden. We had the worst trade deals ever made, and our country was laughed at from all over the world. But they're not laughing anymore. Over the past 11 months, we have brought more positive change to Washington than any administration in American history.
I believe that is true.
There's never been anything like it, and I think most would agree.
Yeah.
I was elected in a landslide, winning the popular vote and all 7 swing states and everything else, with a mandate to take on a sick and corrupt system that really just took the wealth from people and crushed the dreams of the American people.
True that.
For the last 4 years, the United States was ruled by politicians who fought only for insiders, illegal aliens, career criminals, corporate lobbyists, prisoners, terrorists, and above all, foreign nations, which took advantage of us at levels never seen before. They flooded your cities and towns with illegal aliens. They decimated your hard-earned savings. They indoctrinated your children with hate for America. They just released a level of violent felons that we had never seen to prey on innocent. They caused war. They caused mayhem. They caused a horrible situation all over the globe. But now you have a president who fights for the law-abiding, hardworking people of our country, the ones who make this nation run, who make this nation work. And after just 1 year, we have achieved more than anyone could have imagined. Starting on day one, I took immediate action to stop the invasion of our southern border. For the past 7 months, 0 illegal aliens have been allowed into our country, a feat which everyone said was absolutely impossible.
They have to play
a
role in
seal number 5. Do you remember when Joe Biden said that he needed Congress to pass legislation to help close the border? He was always blaming Congress and everyone else. As it turned out, we didn't need legislation. We just needed a new president.
Yeah.
We inherited the worst border anywhere in the world, and we quickly turned it into the strongest border in the history of our country. In other words, in a few short months, we went from worst to best. We're deporting criminals, restoring safety to our most dangerous cities. Just take a look at Washington, D.C. It's at levels of safety that we've never seen before. And they decimated the bloodthirsty foreign drug cartels. We did that all by ourselves with our people, and we're so proud of it because they were poisoning and destroying our population. drugs brought in by ocean and by sea are now down 94%. We have broken the grip of sinister woke radicals in our schools, and control over those schools is back now in the hands of our great and loving states where education belongs. After rebuilding the United States military in my first term, and with the addition we are adding right now, we have the most powerful military anywhere in the world, and it's not even close. I've restored American strength, settled 8 wars in 10 months, destroyed the Iran nuclear threat, and ended the war in Gaza, bringing for the first time in 3,000 years peace to the Middle East, and secured the release of the hostages, both living and dead. Here at home, we're bringing our economy back from the brink of ruin. The last administration and their allies in Congress looted our treasury for trillions of dollars, driving up prices and everything at levels never seen before. I am bringing those high prices down and bringing them down very fast. Let's look at the facts. Under the Biden administration,
limits
car
the inflation.
prices rose 22%, and in many states, 30% or more. Gasoline rose 30 to 50%. Hotel rates rose 37%. Airfares rose 31%. Now, under our leadership, they are all coming down and coming down fast. Democrat politicians also sent the cost of groceries soaring, but we are solving that too. The price of a Thanksgiving turkey was down 33% compared to the Biden last year. The price of eggs is down 82% since March, and everything else is falling rapidly. And it's not done yet, but boy, are we making progress. Nobody can believe what's going on. Here are just some of the efforts that we have underway. You will see in your wallets and bank accounts in the new year. After years of record-setting falling incomes, our policies are boosting take-home pay at a historic pace. Under Biden, real wages plummeted by $3,000. Under Trump, the typical factory worker has seen a wage increase of $1,300. For construction workers, it's $1,800. For miners, we're bringing back clean, beautiful coal. It's $3,300. And for the first time in years, wages are rising much faster than inflation. Remember that. The wages, just look at it. Wages are going up much faster than inflation. How big is that? Very importantly, there are more people working today than at any time in American history, and 100% of all jobs created since I took office have been in the private sector. Think of that. 100% of all jobs have been in the private sector rather than government, which is the only way to make a country powerful and great. This historic trend will continue. Already, I've secured a record-breaking $18 trillion of investment into the United States, which means jobs, wage increases, growth, factory openings, and far greater national security. Much of this success has been accomplished by tariffs. My favorite word, tariffs, which for many decades have been used successfully by other countries against us,
coming back down
but not anymore. Companies know that if they build in America, there are no tariffs, and that's why they're coming home to the USA in record numbers. They're building factories and plants at levels we haven't seen, AI, automobiles. We're doing what nobody thought was even possible, not even remotely possible. There has never, frankly, been anything like it. 1 year ago, our country was dead. We were absolutely dead. Our country was ready to fail, totally failed. Now, we're the hottest country anywhere in the world, and that's said by every single leader that I've spoken to over the last 5 months. Next year, you will also see the results of the largest tax cuts in American history that were really accomplished through our great, big, beautiful bill, perhaps the most sweeping legislation ever passed in Congress. We wrapped 12 different bills up into one beautiful bill. That includes no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and no tax on Social Security for our great seniors. Under these cuts, many families will be saving between $11,000 and $20,000 a year, and next spring is projected to be the largest tax refund season of all time. Because of tariffs, along with the just passed One Big Beautiful Bill, tonight I am also proud to announce that more than 1,450,000, think of this, 1,450,000 military service members will receive a special, we call Warrior Dividend before Christmas, a Warrior Dividend. In honor of our nation's founding in 1776. We are sending every soldier $1,776.
Nice.
Think of that. And the checks are already on the way. Nobody understood that one until about 30 minutes ago. We made a lot more money than anybody thought because of tariffs, and the bill helped us along. Nobody deserves it more than our military, and I say congratulations to everybody. And by the way, we now have record enlistment in our military, and last year we had among the worst recruitment numbers in our military's history.
A lot of people want to join
What a
ICE.
difference a year makes. In addition, I'm doing what no politician of either party has ever done, standing up to the special interests to dramatically reduce the price of prescription drugs. I negotiated directly with the drug companies and foreign nations, which were taking advantage of our country for many decades, to slash prices on drugs and pharmaceuticals by as much as 400, 500, and even 600%. In other words, your drug costs will be plummeting downward. And I used the threat of tariffs to get foreign countries who would never have done it to pay the cost of this giant dollar reduction. They stopped ripping us off, and it began as of 4 days ago. There has never been anything like this in the history of our country. Drugs have only gone up, but now they'll be going down by numbers never conceived possible. It's called Most Favored Nation. And no president has ever had the courage or ability to get this done until now. The first of these unprecedented price reductions will be available starting in January through a new website, trumprx.gov. And these big price cuts will greatly reduce the cost of health care. I'm also taking on the gigantic health insurance companies that have gotten rich on billions of dollars of money that should go directly to the people. The money should go to the people. That's you. So they can buy their own health insurance, which will give far better benefits at much lower cost. It will be far better health
It'll be
insurance.
a painful transition.
The current Unaffordable
but
Care
better.
Act was created to make insurance companies rich. It was bad health care at much too high a cost. And you see that now in the steep increase in premiums being demanded by the Democrats, and they are demanding those increases, and it's their fault. It is not the Republicans' fault. It's the Democrats' fault. It's the Unaffordable Care Act, and everybody knew it. Again, I want the money to go directly to the people so you can buy your own health care. You'll get much better health care at a much lower price. The only losers will be insurance companies that have gotten rich, and the Democrat Party, which is totally controlled by those same insurance companies. They will not be happy, but that's okay with me because you, the people, are finally going to be getting great health care at a lower cost. Another major focus is the cost of energy. For years, the radical left Democrats exploited the green energy scam as an excuse to funnel many billions of dollars into their own massive slush funds as their
Probably to
energy
build deep
restrictions
underground
drastically
bunkers.
drove up prices, and they drove them up at record levels. Electricity costs surged 30 to 100% under Biden, and the typical family lost $5,000 to $10,000 in higher energy costs. Think of that, $5,000 to $10,000 you lost. On day one, I declared a national energy emergency. Gasoline is now under $2.50 a gallon in much of the country. In some states, it, by the way, just hit $1.99
not on the West
a gallon.
Coast, unfortunately.
And within the next 12 months, we will have opened 1,600 new electrical generating plants, a record. And it's a record that won't be beaten by practically, I would say, by anybody. or certainly not very soon.
2025
Prices
to
on electricity
2030.
and
That's
everything else
interesting.
will fall dramatically. The
Interesting
Democrat
time
inflation
frame.
disaster, again, the worst in the history of our country, also robbed millions of Americans of home ownership and indeed the American dream.
Yeah.
The yearly cost of a typical new mortgage increased by $15,000 under Democrat rule. In 11 months, we've already gotten that annual cost down by $3,000, and it's coming down a lot lower. Wait till you see. The numbers are going to be shocking. And I'll soon announce our next chairman of the Federal Reserve, someone who believes in lower interest rates by a lot, and mortgage payments will be coming down even further. Early the new year, and you will see this, in the new year I will announce some of the most aggressive housing reform plans in American history. A major factor in driving up housing costs was the colossal border invasion. We have never been invaded.
My
This
mortgage
is the
has gone up
worst
by
thing
$700
that, frankly,
a month
in my
since
opinion,
Biden.
the worst thing that the Biden administration did to our country is the invasion at the border. The last administration and their allies in Congress brought in millions and millions of migrants and gave them taxpayer-funded housing while your rent and housing costs skyrocketed. Over 60% of growth in the rental market came from foreign migrants. At the same time, illegal aliens stole American jobs and flooded emergency rooms, getting free health care and education paid for by you, the American taxpayer. They also increased the cost of law enforcement by numbers so high that they are not even to be mentioned. For the first time in 50 years, we are now seeing reverse migration as migrants go back home, leaving more housing and more jobs for Americans. In the year before my election, all net creation of jobs was going to foreign migrants. Since I took office, 100% of all net job creation has gone to American-born citizens, 100%. In the end, government either serves the productive, patriotic, hardworking American citizen, or it serves those who break the laws, cheat the system, and seek power and profit at the expense of our nation. Look at Minnesota, where Somalians have taken over the economics of the state and have stolen billions and billions of dollars from Minnesota and indeed from the United States of America. And we're going to put an end to it. For so long as before my election, the vast majority of good and decent Americans were forced to watch as corrupt politicians plundered the halls of power, exploited our taxpayers, and pillaged every system that makes civilized society function. But not anymore, and you see that every day, not anymore. We're putting America first, and we are making America great again. Very simple. We are making America great again. Tonight, after 11 months, our border is secure. Inflation is stopped. Wages are up. Prices are down. Our nation is strong. America is respected, and our country is back, stronger than ever before. We're poised for an economic boom, the likes of which the world has never seen. Soon we will host the World Cup and the Olympics, both of which I got. But most importantly, we will celebrate the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. There could be no more fitting tribute to this epic milestone than to complete the comeback of America that began just 1 year ago. When the world looks at us next year, let them see a nation that is loyal to its citizens, faithful to its workers, confident to its identity, certain to its destiny, and the envy of the entire globe. We are respected again like we have never been respected before. To each and every one of you, have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. God bless you all.
Damn. There you go. America was dead, and now it's alive, and the whole world marveled. That's where we are. That's where it seems we are. So, what to do? What to do? Well, it seems like we know a little bit about the future. I think of the timeline that we've covered. Probably go look over here. From the timeline that we covered, the most interesting things are yet to come. 2026 is going to be an interesting year. You've got 2 months leeway. I know we are working on getting everything in order. So we're getting our house in order, restocking our preps, making sure that we have everything that we need in case of something. And it may not be anything. I mean, like when you look at this, it parallels the union of the United States and the United Kingdom. Seal number 3. And what I was trying to say during what he was saying about inflation, Revelation 6:6 very clearly limits the inflation to the first 4 beasts. So it said, in the midst of the 4 living creatures, I heard a measure of wheat for a denarius, 3 measures of barley for a denarius, and do not harm the oil and the wine. The inflation was limited to this period of time. Pandemic, Biden administration, Union of the United States and the United Kingdom, the Aloxa flood, and now it's starting to go down. We are coming out. So if this is the end of seal number 4, right there, so we're still in seal number 4 technically. If this is the end of it, inflation will have gone down. It will no longer be in the midst of the 4 living creatures, because now we're getting out of the living creatures. There's no more living creatures after this point calling any attention to the seals. It's just seal number 5, seal number 6, and seal number 7. So this is where we are. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. God bless you guys. This has been great. Make sure you join us tomorrow. We'll be here at the same time, 4:30 Pacific Standard Time, 7:30 Eastern Standard Time, 6:30 Central Standard if you're Central. Thanks again, you guys. Make sure you're loving God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and loving your neighbor as yourself. That's what really matters. Your redemption draws nigh. Our Lord is coming home soon. He could literally be up there with a fleet of ships. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if 3i Atlas is a fleet of crafts. BP Earthwatch seems to think it is. I tend to agree based on the data. We're very close to seal number 5, seal number 6. Seal number 6 seems like we don't want to be here when that happens. If we are, trust God that he moves you where you need to be. But seal number 6 is when things seem like the earth starts to kind of get hard to live on, and you don't want to be on it during that period of time. You know when you do want to be on it is after the end of seal number 7. Maybe come back after everything's been wiped clean. So it could be a Noah's Ark situation. Wouldn't that be cool? Anyway, happy Hanukkah. God bless you guys. Shalom, shalom. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. God bless you guys.